easily identifiable as the most disturbingly efficient murderer in the animal kingdom. Robins inculcate their young with these twisted maws. We see an adult robin feeding its young with the ripped-apart viscerae of an innocent worm. Like the Greek hero Atreus eating the flesh of his children at his own table, this black deed must surely curse the entire species. Even the most depraved acts of humanity pale in comparison to the robin's wickedness. Like idiot rapists, they commit their foul deeds with neither foresight nor hindsight. They live entirely in the present. Living beyond space and time, their god is the awful seething maelstrom of chaos at the center of the unfeeling universe.
This is the Onion News Network.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Well, what is up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of
Liberty at Night
with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. What's up, man? I switched into Conestold ET.
The volunteer state.
What does that mean, you think?
I don't know.
Have you volunteered for much?
No, but
I haven't. I've been here for 15 years. I haven't volunteered for a damn thing.
There's a lot of Tennessee Vols fans upset about the Alabama game this weekend. They were dominating the first half, and then Nick Saban came and Sabaned in the second half.
Sports scene.
A lot of ref blaming and stuff.
Oh, I hate it when people blame the refs.
I mean, there were a lot of missed calls. I will say that.
Got to play the course.
But you should have been up more.
Yeah, there you go. Overcome it.
Who cares?
Just do it. What's up, everyone? We also go by the name Good Morning Liberty, but on Tuesdays, we go by Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live network. But we're also Good Morning Liberty. We talk life, liberty, and the pursuit of meaning every single day of the week when we want to. Yesterday, apparently, was a day of the week where we did not want to. And it's in the fine print. It's not even fine print, actually. We say it
out loud.
Yeah. Every time it's when we want to.
In bold and cursive.
Mm-hmm. So, and it's funny, that actually sticks with people. Like a lot of people, when they comment, they'll say when you want to. I think I don't know. It's one of those weird things that just sticks with people because it's not really grammatically correct. It ends in the preposition. It sounds weird, but it sticks.
And it smells funny.
Gets the people going.
Yeah.
So what happened over the weekend and yesterday? Well, there's war stuff going on. Bombs being dropped, people being killed, revenge being had. There's protests all over the globe. A lot in the United States also. Apparently everyone's big fans of Palestine. I didn't realize how many sleeper fans of Palestine there were out there.
Well, their soccer team.
Yeah. Big stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm a little surprised by this. I've also found it kind of weird. There's been other wars in the Middle East where people were getting killed.
You know what I was thinking about last night?
Yeah, let's go on to what you were thinking about.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this whole thing last night.
Yeah.
But I was also thinking,
I was too. We'll talk about that after.
I was thinking about just the inconsistency and like the illogic of leftist, like hardcore leftists especially, Like they call Trump a Nazi, even though he wasn't. Now, I'm not saying he was a good president. Some of his policies were good and some of them were terrible.
Dude, on top of that, if you were to criticize George Soros like 3 months ago, you were anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
You hated Jews.
Exactly. But then they're all buddies with Palestine.
Yeah.
And Hamas, essentially, who literally wants to exterminate Jews.
Yeah.
Then they also want to back literal Nazis in Ukraine.
It's almost
it's like there's no... What is happening? I just don't understand how you can go to bed at night and you're having these thoughts and you're like, oh yeah, that all makes sense. Yeah, Trump's a Nazi and I hate Nazis, but I'll make sure I want my president to send money to Nazis.
But some Nazis are good.
Yeah, because they're fighting the most evil person in the world, Putin.
Who was evil because he helped Trump win the 2016 election. Who's a Nazi.
So
you want to give money to Nazis to fight that, for sure.
But then Hamas, who wants to also exterminate Jews. He's fine.
Totally
They're fine. They're.
Do you want to know why?
It's so weird.
I didn't expect this conversation this early. I actually expected it in like 10 minutes, but it's fine. Let's do it right now. It's because the left sees the world through the lens of a power struggle. It's a power dynamic. It's why they can do things like what I just pulled up earlier. It's why you can see things like this, where there's a Queers for Palestine protest in New York City, and people can be okay with that.
Do you know what they're chanting? From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And that literally means all of Israel.
Yeah, that means no. Not
from the Jordanian River all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. That like literally no Israel.
But they're not
what
saying,
that means.
They're not saying they're going to kill all of them. They're just going to put them in trains and ship them to other places, to greener pastures. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
So,
yep. It's the pasture smell funny,
no,
though.
the oppressor versus the oppressed, the oppressor versus the victim is how they see the world, and it's why you can have such conflicting ideas on different subjects. Like, it's okay to give money to Nazis in Ukraine because the oppressor is Russia, who was attacking Ukraine, trying to take Ukraine. So therefore, there is a victim class that needs our money. And when you look at Israel or the Zionist movement in Palestine, where they are the ones who push people off of their land most recently, and these are the people that are huddled together in their little 25-mile strip and have terrible lives, and so they're the victims in the situation. The oppressors are Israel, and that doesn't mean you have to hate Jews. It just means that these specific Jews are oppressors, and so it's okay to hate them. It's also why you can see things like this that I pulled up for later, which is the Queers for Palestine rally. And
it's so funny because I see like actual leftists that are actual Jews who are now like, they're out there saying like, hey guys, if people who want to like kill Jews just for being Jews, like that's not right. But I'm like, you were just calling Trump a Nazi a year ago.
Yeah, it is really weird.
Actually, a few months ago when he got arrested, you were all excited that a Nazi was going to go to jail.
It's because of the philosophy of oppressor versus oppressed.
And then a few months before that, you were saying we needed to send money to Nazis in Ukraine to fight Putin. Mm-hmm. And you're a Jew.
Yeah.
Like an actual one. And how does that work in your head?
The way you feel right now is how it feels when you're being gaslit.
I know.
And what you're actually getting from the left all the time is projection. Yeah. And so that is the problem that we're dealing with right now in the world. There is no coherent philosophy or principle behind all. There is a philosophy. It's the oppressor philosophy.
But this is why this is why we talk about truth and logical consistency and principles, because they matter. It's a framework from which you can view the world that makes a coherent argument for, let's say, morality, right? So you can approach these situations and not do stupid stuff like this.
Yeah, so we don't have to have like sound. We see what they're doing.
Queer rights, trans rights. We say no to genocide. Queer rights.
So you get something like
realize
this. So in Gaza, it's illegal to be gay. In Gaza, they'll put you in prison for up to 10 years, and in some cases they'll lock you up and torture you and things like that. I was reading this article earlier about this gay man who fled Gaza and was talking about the things that he went through being gay in Gaza. His dad was actually a member of Hamas. He said they put me at 17 when he was caught having sex with his boyfriend. They imprisoned him for 3 days, put him in a tiny room that was 2 by 2 meters, wouldn't let him sleep or go to the bathroom. There was no food. They would torture me so badly. Sometimes they'd tie my feet up, beat them with a stick. After that, every few years, they would arrest me and torture me in the same way. Over the course of 5 years, Abdul said Hamas would kidnap him off the streets, torture him, and then release him. Finally, at 22, they let him go for the last time. And so you hear a story like this.
He was forced to take an oath on the Quran that he wouldn't be gay again.
Yeah.
Conversion therapy.
Yes. So you hear a story like this and you think, well, in our country, Like if you're not fully behind, I don't know, gay people getting married, or like if you don't like it when a drag queen flops his wiener in front of a kid, then you're like an anti-gay bigot, homophobe, and that a Nazi. You're a Nazi at that time,
exactly.
Essentially, and so you must be eradicated here in the U.S. But if you're in the U.S. and you're supporting someone who is a member of a victim class who's being oppressed by another state, then it doesn't matter. That
Even if they hate your entire group.
If you were to go there, they would put you in a cage and literally torture you for being who you are. It's not just that they would remove a book from the school library or something like that. Like they would actually torture you. You can support those people because in this specific scenario, they're a victim. You see how weird that is?
It's so ridiculous.
It's very strange stuff.
Yeah. It makes me want to give up.
No, no, I wouldn't go that far.
Well,
okay?
but you can't even have conversations with these folks most of the time.
I know.
And so you're just like, I can't make it make sense because it doesn't.
You know, the other part.
And then I feel it almost creates like this anxiety because I'm like, how is it even possible? Again, for me, it goes to simple math. You're trying to say like 2 + 2 = 5. Mm-hmm. We're back to Animal Farm, 1984.
Animal Farm or 1984, whichever. I guess 1984.
1984
maybe for that one. Sure.
Would be the actual 2 + 2 = 5.
So
it's just like it's so mind-boggling. It's so I can't even put words to it.
The deeper the extension of that, if you go even further, that we've already talked about on this show, is
the live group, by the way, is talking about baseball.
Yeah. Join the Fed Haters Club. So
they want to know if Arizona or Philadelphia is going to play Texas, who won handedly last night. So
not that Texas, the other Texas.
Yeah, not Houston. Yeah, the Dallas.
Texas.
Yeah.
The Dallas Rangers.
The Dallas, Texas Rangers.
Finally a good team in Dallas. It's about time.
Yeah.
No, if you go further than that, remember the basis of this problem has to do with the land. And if you go really far back in time, you see that the land was Israel.
If you go back to the land before time, it belonged to the dinosaurs.
And they are the rightful heirs of this land. But then it was Israel, okay, and then it was Palestine or Palestina or whatever they called it. It was taken from the from the Jews from Israel, and then it was given back in 1947. And there were people that were pushed off the land and resettled, stuff like that. So in supporting Israel, keeping this as the rightful heirs to this land, you would also, by my analogy or estimation, have to support the idea that the UN could say that the Native Americans could have whatever spot in America or America if they wanted it, and that we'd have to go with that because if you go back really far in time, that's the people that it belonged to. Now, it's not written down in a book that billions of people read all over the world, but I think you could probably prove that was the case. But that's the side that, like, the right believes in the Israel debate. The side the left believes is that the people that were originally on the land do not have rights to that land, that it's the people that then came after them.
They flip-flop.
And they're getting pushed off. And so then they would take the opposite side of the debate
in
when
America.
You take the Native American conversation.
Yeah.
And what it then boils down to, once again, is who is the victim and who is the oppressor. And that is what decides the argument.
But have Jews never been victims?
Sure they
but
have.
Only to Nazis.
Yeah, only to Nazis. Never anywhere else in the entire world, just to Nazis. That's it. And so that's why you would hate the Nazis really bad and not want to ever say anything anti-Semitic unless you were talking about Jews in Israel. And I don't want to say that every time you talk about Jews in Israel or Israel, that's anti-Semitic. You could say that that's anti-Zionism or whatever the movement was to move people back to Israel. I think you could be anti that and still not hate Jews as people. But people in Gaza, Hamas, they hate Jews. Like they kind of hate Jews. Seems to be the thing.
They actually wrote it down.
It seems, yeah, they wrote it
in their journal. I hate Jews. Like, I don't know. My thing was, I was thinking like, okay, when the last time that someone or a group of people wanted to like exterminate an entire group of people, the same people, Jews,
same people,
that led to World War II. Mm-hmm. So
is it going to lead to World War III?
I have a feeling.
You think?
Yeah.
Let's talk about free speech here for a second. Ron DeSanctimonious out here, Ron DeSantis, was talking about some of the people that are protesting. I want to see what people think about this. Here's Ron.
And I think what this terrorist attack in Israel has shown us is we're vulnerable from all the people that have come illegally because they have come from Iran too. It's not just Mexico, Central America, Russia, China, Middle East, all that stuff. But I think what we also saw when the blood wasn't even dry on the Israelis who had been massacred, you had people in America going out protesting in favor of Hamas. Yes. And that's like very chilling. Some of these people are not U.S. citizens. They're student visas. So as president, if you're on a student visa and you're a foreigner and you're out there celebrating terrorism, I'm canceling your visa and I'm sending you home.
All right. So President Ron DeSantis is going to cancel your student visa if you are protesting in favor of Hamas. Now, you'd have to be very specific. Are you protesting in favor of Hamas and the things that happened there? Are you protesting in favor of Palestine getting all of its land back? In what way are you protesting? Is that river to the sea in a very violent way? Or are you going to ask everyone to kindly move in trains or whatever away? There's a lot of different ways that you could discuss this topic. And I think it is a lot more complicated than a lot of people will allow it to be. Like we are talking about something that was less than 100 years ago, just starting basically a new state and moving people out of the way. You know, I do believe it's more complicated than everyone's given it credit. But anyway, I disagree with Ron DeSantis on this. I do think that you have the freedom of speech to protest or to chant, to do whatever in favor of whatever it is that you want to do. And there is a very tricky line here because you could say, well, you're protesting in favor of a terrorist group that killed civilians. I've seen a lot of people that support the U.S. government, you know. And so that's a tricky,
a lot of innocent civilians.
It's a tricky situation there. Now we do it in a sleeker, smoother, cooler way than
very
everyone else does.
With American flags and stuff. You know?
We use planes and bombs and stuff like that. I got cool uniforms and all that.
You can see the flyovers over stadiums at football games. Yeah, and you got parachuters come down in the stadium.
I believe that you can have whatever beliefs you want to have as long as you personally have not hurt people or taken their stuff.
Do you know we actually go over to London to play football games?
T-Dub says Lee Greenwood plays during the time.
But we actually go over to London, England and play football games.
American football.
And sing the national anthem.
Our national anthem. Over there.
Which is about freedom from...
How ironic is that?
The UK.
It's pretty crazy.
We sing it.
It's kind of weird.
On their land.
Awkward.
I know. That's how badass America is.
Oh, man. It's like having your wedding in your ex-wife's backyard, you know? It's weird stuff.
Oh, man.
Okay. Speaking of the civilians and stuff like that, I guess we can get on a little bit of track here.
Well, I was going to say though, real quick about this, is that, their freedom of speech is a natural right. Some people in the group are saying, well, technically it's only Americans. Well, that's not true. Actually, the Supreme Court has held up that visitors have the same rights.
I think people on visas are protected by our amendments as well.
But also as libertarians, you have to believe, or people who are liberty-minded, you have to believe.
You should believe.
You should, that we have natural rights. And the natural right to speak freely should not be hindered. And I don't care.
They're not given to us by the government. So the people that are here, even if they're not American citizens, we believe that they have those rights. Now, whether or not our government decides to protect that right, that's on the government, but they do have those rights just like we do. We're just in a government that says that they're going to protect those rights, allegedly.
And you can think that what people are saying is stupid. That's fine. Call them out for it.
Yeah.
I think that's dumb.
Make a better argument if you wanted to.
Exactly. But so I disagree with.
There's people that support socialism. They have rallies and stuff, and they rally for an ideology that has killed 100 million people minimum around the globe, and it would lead to your property being stolen, taken from you. And there's people who even support the IRS, who takes your money away from you under the
sends it
threat
to
of
Nazis
death.
in Ukraine.
Yeah, they take it and send it to actual Nazis over there. They even send it to Israel,
and then we celebrate America.
Yeah, they support the IRS, who takes your money and sends it to Israel, who's committing a genocide against the people in Gaza
who want to kill Jews,
according to these. God,
it all comes back to the Jews.
That's the thing, the Babylon Bee had this article that it said Ilhan Omar said that we, I can't remember how they worded it, but we could stop anti-Semitism if we could just get rid of all the Jews. Yeah. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Which is a joke, by the way.
It is a joke.
We love Jews.
Yeah. And it's from the Babylon Bee.
Yeah, it's satire.
Speaking of some of the civilian stuff, while we're talking about that, Obama, he was the president for 8 years. He was our first half-black president. Obama urges Israel to minimize civilian casualties in the war with Hamas.
Something he was keen on with his drone strikes.
Yeah. So I made this meme last night. I thought it was pretty funny. It's the guy. I just searched a guy with hands on his hips meme, and so the picture came up. And it didn't do well on our page, but it got yanked by a bigger page within 10 minutes of me posting it, and did really well on their page.
And you forgot to watermark it.
Oh, I put right there on the sleeve.
Oh.
Look at that good AM Liberty right there on the sleeve. There it is. So it's the guy with the hands on his hips.
But
and
I didn't see it.
I know.
Which means it wasn't big enough.
Around it said, but at least I know that it was it was our meme. Around the guy's head, it says Pakistan, Yemen, Libya, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia. And they're like, what you talking about? Minimizing civilian casualty. There's an article.
Could have added Panama.
If you want to go to an article in here from the Washington Post, Obama urges Israel to minimize civilian casualties. Now, he's right. I do want to say he's right about this. And that maybe he learned some lessons. He learned a thing or two because he saw a thing or two while he was president. And he has said that Libya was one of his biggest mistakes as president, that they didn't think about what was going to happen after Gaddafi radio stuff, never mind. After Gaddafi was removed from power, they didn't think about what was going to happen after that. So a lot of people died.
He just run free.
Turned into a terrorist civil war hellscape out there. All right, we're going to continue this conversation about Obama maybe getting something right when it comes to Israel, however hypocritical it is. Also, we'll be talking about other items of news coming up on the second segment today. Make sure you follow our daily podcast, Good Morning Liberty. You can go to goodmorningliberty.us, go to bernielies.com. Or you can find us on Liberty at Night.
If you're looking for work, the person you are applying to is probably so swamped with applicants that he or she is tough to reach. So call early in the day, before 8 a.m., before the palace guards arrive. You'll need your prospect's direct number, and here's a sneaky way to get it. Suppose the company's main number is 555-5000. You should call 555-5012. When someone says, "Good morning, Pam Johnson," you should innocently say, "Oops, somebody here must have written this down wrong. I was calling for Tom Frederick. What's his direct number?" If the very next thing you hear isn't Pam giving you Tom's number, it may be, good morning, Tom Frederick. For more tips for job seekers and getting better results in all your day-to-day communication, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Israel's ambassador to the United Nations has called on the UN Secretary-General to resign following Antonio Guterres' comments on the Israel-Hamas conflict. Taking to the social media platform X, Gilad Erdan said Guterres is completely disconnected from the reality of the region. FSN's Jody Jacobs reports from UNHQ in New York.
In his address to the Council on Tuesday, Antonio Guterres says that it was important to recognize that the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. The Palestinian people, he said, have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation. This statement drew the ire of the Israeli delegation also attending the meeting. Taking to social media, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, called the Secretary-General's speech shocking. I call on him to resign immediately, he said. Erdan says there's no justification in talking to those who show compassion for the most terrible atrocities against the citizens of Israel.
Tom Emmer is the new Speaker-designate for the U.S. House of Representatives after Republican Party lawmakers in Congress voted behind closed doors to select him as the new nominee. FSN's Benji Hire reports.
The Republican whip, Tom Emmer, defeated a panel of 7 of his colleagues to earn the nomination, but it remains to be seen if he'll have the necessary numbers to actually get his hands on the gavel. For weeks now, the lower chamber has been in limbo, rudderless, frozen without a speaker at the helm. The timing of all this is dire. Congress faces a government funding deadline in November. Meanwhile, crises unfold abroad, Ukraine and Israel fighting wars and asking for US aid. Emmer, a Minnesota congressman, needs 217 of his colleagues to back him when he decides to take the vote to the House floor.
Donald Trump's former fixer and lawyer, Michael Cohen, has told a New York court that the former president arbitrarily set his net worth. Cohen is testifying at Trump's civil fraud case, where the former president is accused of inflating the value of his real estate assets. 33 US states have filed a lawsuit accusing Meta of causing harm to children who use the company's online platforms, which include Facebook and Instagram. The lawsuit cites research showing that social media use is associated with issues such as depression. FSN's Ira Spitzer has more from San Francisco.
The complaint, filed in a Northern California court, alleges that Meta violated consumer protection laws by misleading the public over the dangers of its platforms. The states say that algorithms used by Facebook and Instagram are designed to push children into addictive and compulsive social media use in order to boost Meta's profits. They are seeking financial penalties and an injunction to stop the company from using certain features.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Okay, on Liberty Night before the break, we were talking about Obama's epiphany on preventing civilian casualties. So let's get into that article. Go ahead, Charlie.
All right, from the WAPO. Former President Barack Obama on Monday spoke out about the Israel-Hamas conflict, warning that Israel's strikes against Gaza could backfire. So, because he knows a lot about backfire, too. Blowback.
He's right about that.
Yeah.
He is. This is a little bit of the pot calling the kettle half black. Yeah.
Can you say that?
Sure.
In a Medium post published on Monday, which is just a blog, Medium.
It's a Medium.
Yeah. Obama spoke out about the ongoing situation in Gaza. To start, he reaffirmed his past comments supporting Israel's rights to defend itself from the likes of Hamas and expressed support of President Joe Biden's response to the situation. Quote, as I stated in an earlier post, Israel has a right to defend its citizens against such wanton violence, and I fully support President Biden's call for the United States to support our longtime ally in going after Hamas, dismantling its military capabilities, and facilitating the safe return of hundreds of hostages to their families. Despite that, the former president added that how Israel prosecutes this fight against Hamas matters, and urged that the country abide by international laws that seek to avoid, to every extent possible, the death or suffering of civilian populations, lest its efforts backfire. Quote, the world is watching closely as events in the region unfold, and any Israeli military strategy that ignores the human costs could ultimately backfire. Already, thousands of Palestinians have been killed in the bombing of Gaza, many of them children. Hundreds of thousands have been forced from their homes. Weird.
He's always cared about that, I bet.
Yeah. He continued, the Israeli government's decision to cut off food, water, and electricity to a captive civilian population threatens not only to worsen a growing humanitarian crisis, it could further harden Palestinian attitudes for generations, erode global support for Israel, play into the hands of Israel's enemies, and undermine long-term efforts to achieve peace and stability in the region. All of that is correct.
He's right about all that. Yeah,
especially cutting off the water and the electricity and things of that nature. I get you're trying to choke out the enemy, but at the same time, there's a lot of innocent. Actually, it's mostly innocent bystanders.
Probably mostly innocent people.
Yeah, who are. I mean, you're just gonna imagine. Just you have to, and see, this is where people who lack empathy can't do this. But if you have any type of empathy at all, you can just imagine yourself living in Gaza, and you have a family, and you love Jews. Jews love you, and you go back and forth to Israel, and your kids are friends with Jew kids, and everybody gets along nicely, and you want nothing to do with what Hamas is doing.
Yeah,
and then Israel decides to cut off your electricity and your water, and you got bombs dropping everywhere. You're trying to hold your children tight, tell them it's going to be okay, even though in your mind, you know, like you're full of fear too. Just imagine yourself as a dad or mom, right? And then you can't feed your children. You can't cook any food. There's no electricity. There's no running water. You're getting sick. One of your kids dies in an Israeli bomb. What are you going to think? What are you going to think?
I bet you'd be pretty mad.
Yes.
Even if you agreed, you could even agree that Israel had a right to defend itself. But you might not agree that your kid died and you're upset. You know, you might not agree with your kid dying in that scenario, I would say. So like we said, I mean, Obama's totally right about this. And it's not that this is easy for Israel to fix here. I don't think there is a solution to this problem personally. Not really anyway, until this whole, with the land dispute in the middle of this, there's not really a solution.
I don't understand how why haven't we not evolved war to a place where we could stealthily go after people?
My God. I'm so good at this.
Stealthily go after people. Why have we not created that yet?
I think that
why do we have to drop bombs that could potentially kill thousands of people who want no part of this?
I think a lot of times it's because you are trying to kill more people than just the people who perpetrated the actual crime in Israel. Like just getting those people might not scare off everyone else in the future. And so you do want to lay waste to the area and warn people off that, you know, never do this again. But I think Obama's right.
And is that what America did by dropping the nukes on Japan?
I think that's what we did. We scared off a lot of people with that, for sure. And I'm not even sure, you know, we can debate whether or not it was entirely necessary at that time. But I think that we probably won some future wars by doing that. And that might have been some of the reasoning behind it. But Obama's right about the fact that you can harden people's resolve. And that's what we've been talking about. Like, I want Israel to win this fight. I want there to be peace out there. I want them to be able to stop dropping bombs and for Gaza to not launch rockets at them afterwards. Because if Israel starts shooting, it's not like Hamas is going to stop shooting at that time. I want there to actually be peace over there. But I don't think that this is the way, because I think, as we've said now numerous times, that there will be more Hamas terrorists after this than there were beforehand, because there are a lot of families. The number now allegedly is 5,000 people that have been killed in Gaza. We don't know how many of those people were members of Hamas or whatever.
There were about 1,500 Israelis.
Yeah.
That were killed.
And so, eye for an eye. We did an eye for two eyes on this one, from what I can tell, and a nose.
Imagine if Israel went through Gaza and took hostages and was raping and pillaging, like if they did what the Hamas terrorists did.
It would be bad.
That you're just the same person then.
Yeah.
Like what separates you? That they did it first?
Not much. Yeah, I guess that they did it first, but I mean, this is just a retaliation for a retaliation at this time. So I did pull up this article right here because we have been trying to answer this question. And I thought this was interesting. There's a new elite Israeli unit that they're forming to hunt down every Hamas terrorist involved in that sneak attack on October 7th, the day which shall live in infamy. An elite unit of Israeli agents has been formed to hunt down every Hamas terrorist involved in the heinous October 7th sneak attack on the Jewish state, according to reports. These specially selected members of Shin Bet, Israel's version of the FBI, will function independently from other units targeting high-ranking terrorists, the Jerusalem Post said. The new unit will specifically target members of the special Hamas commando group called Nukba, which is believed to have pulled off the attack that slaughtered hundreds of innocent Israelis along the country's border. Shin Bet's new unit will use intelligence as well as agents in the field to hunt down the estimated 2,500 terrorists involved in the attack. That's a lot of terrorists. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of people. Yep. You know, we had...
But wait till there's 10,000.
We had like playing card decks of people that we were looking for in the countries. And even if you got the jokers in there, you know, there's not 2,500 cards in a deck of cards.
Yeah, and we killed over 1 million people.
Yeah, killed a lot of people out there.
25.
Lost a lot of good men out there. Okay. But if they can create this elite unit that's going to go in, maybe they go in undercover. Maybe they sneak in there all sneakily and they kill these people without killing a bunch of civilians at the same time. Maybe that would be even better. But then I question, is it really about just killing these people, or is it about sending a message? Because you send the message that we hunted you down and killed you, but you don't send the message of, look at all these buildings that are destroyed, you know, at the same time. So I don't know. Which one is it?
I just love the Fed Haters Club.
Yeah.
By the way. So go to joingml.com or don't. I don't care if you do. Or godhatesfeds.com or don't. I don't care if you do, but it's funny. T-Dub says that Nukva, or what would you say? Nukva? Nukva sounds like a brand of fancy butter.
I
would happen to agree.
I would buy that.
Yeah.
That butter. Instead of that Irish butter stuff, I want to get me some Arab butter. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's way better. Way butter.
It's way butter, man.
Man, I tell you what. Anyhow, those are my thoughts on the matter.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And it ends in a butter conversation.
That's how we end the conversation. You see how important it is for people to be in the Fed Haters Club?
Death.
Because we just would have ended with something that we weren't laughing about. And now we get to end talking about fancy butter. Mm-hmm. Let's go on to this editor's note from the New York Times. Remember, misinformation has been surging on Twitter or on X.
Yeah.
But
did they still not have their blue check mark?
I haven't looked actually. That'd be good to know.
Yeah.
The editor's note about the Gaza hospital coverage from the New York Times. This was so important that they printed it on page 15 in their actual paper, if you want to find it. The New York Times published news of an explosion at a hospital in Gaza City, leading its coverage with claims by Hamas government officials that an Israeli airstrike was the cause and that hundreds of people were dead or injured. The report included a large headline at the top of the Times website. Israel subsequently denied being at fault and blamed an errant rocket launched by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which has in turn denied responsibility. American and other international officials have said their evidence indicates that the rocket came from Palestinian fighter positions. The Times' initial accounts attributed the claim of Israeli responsibility to Palestinian officials and noted that the Israeli military said it was investigating the blast. However, the early versions of the coverage and the prominence it received in a headline, news alert, and social media channels relied too heavily on claims by Hamas and did not make clear that those claims could not immediately be verified. The report left readers with an incorrect impression about what was known and how credible the account was. So this is a rare time. This could have been a white pill, I guess, if it weren't so gall-darn destructive. This is a rare time where the New York Times comes out and says, hey, we were wrong. And we didn't really clarify that we could have been wrong at the time and that we were literally reporting based off of information given to us by Hamas. And that is the reports that we were putting out and that all the other papers were putting out. The Times continued to update its coverage as more information became available, reporting the disputed claims of responsibility and noting that the death toll might be lower than initially reported. See, when you say they reported the disputed claims, that means that they're still anchoring on the initial claim made by Hamas. And then you say, well, this is the claim made by Hamas. Israel disputes this claim. You don't say there was an explosion in a parking lot at the hospital. There was an explosion somewhere in Gaza. In fact, we don't really know where because we're not right there on the ground. There was an explosion. Hamas says that Israel did it, and Israel says that Islamic Jihad did it. And we just want to let you know that there was an explosion, and some people might be dead. We don't know how many.
And as soon as we find out, we'll let you know.
We'll let you know. As soon as the sun comes up and we can clearly see what's happening, we'll let you know what's going on. But that is not a viral headline. That was too long of a headline.
Yeah.
You know?
That was a really long headline.
I know. And so they went with
That's why you don't write headlines.
They went with the shorter headline of Israel blows up hospital and kills 500 people instantaneously.
Yeah.
That was a much shorter headline.
So you got a lot more clicks.
Now, listen, it's totally possible that Israel could blow up a hospital. They blew up a church, blew up a really old church that people were sheltering in, and they said that it was a mistake. They didn't mean to hit the church. They were trying to hit a place that was close to the church. In fact, a couple of Justin Amash's family members were killed in that church strike. I saw him post about it. So it's not that they wouldn't hit a target like that. So, yeah, sure, it's possible. Very possible. Given the sensitive nature of the news during a widening conflict and the prominent promotion it received, Times editors should have taken more care with the initial presentation and been more explicit about what information could be verified. Newsroom leaders continue to examine procedures around the biggest breaking news events, including for the use of the largest headlines in the digital report, to determine what additional safeguards may be warranted. Now click here so we can tell you about misinformation put out by Elon Musk.
Yeah.
It's not what it was.
Yeah.
They did print this. By the way, this is a thing that has caused more protests all around the world. It caused riots. It caused violence at embassies all around the world. Are you saying that
they incited violence?
I'm not going to say incite. Well, I can't. I know it's a joke, but I guess actually it's a good time to say no, because they didn't say go do this thing, go riot, go commit violence at embassies.
They would argue.
They would argue, yes.
Other people participate in misinformation that it would incite.
They would.
Yeah.
By their standards, yes. By our standards.
By the truth.
No.
Right.
Ironically. It's very confusing times.
Isn't that the special?
So this was, like I said,
isn't that the special?
This was so important, it came out in an editor's note with no photo, so when you post it, it looks like nothing, and they printed it on page 15 of the actual New York Times. So, not that anyone actually reads that, but I guess people in New York might read it when they're wiping up poop on the subway or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what people do with that paper.
People get physical paper still? Is that a thing?
I think they do. Some people.
You know, I saw a physical paper in my driveway last week.
Yeah?
It must have been a paper boy running around.
Or girl. These days, you can even have paper girls.
Or a non-binary.
You get your paper later and it doesn't make it all the way up to the doorstep, but sure.
Could have been a non-binary.
Yeah.
You know, could have been, I can't think of what they're called now.
Who knows?
For the kids that identify as animals.
Wrong. What?
The ones
furries?
Furries. It could have been a furry. Yeah. A paper furry.
All right, let's keep going backwards in the news stories today. And we've only got 6 minutes left for this here recording. I did want I guess we can just comment on the election in Argentina. Javier Milei came in second place, which was a bit of a surprise. He was polling pretty easily in first place. He came in first place in the primaries.
Isn't this weird?
It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. That's possible, but
also I don't understand how unbiased news places these labels on people.
What label? What are you talking about?
Far right
candidate.
Far right candidate heads to runoff in Argentina election.
In fact, you can look.
In fact, he's not only far right; he's a far right libertarian. Is that a thing?
Sure. I guess so. It depends on how you're counting that. Maybe on cultural issues. I'm not really sure.
Do we have far left libertarians?
One of the important things to take from this is that even if you're just a pretty good libertarian purist, especially, on economics, the guy is really good for sure. They're going to label you far right. And we've made this point to, the Libertarian Party had kind of this shakeup against left libertarians and right libertarians. And some of the people on the left, the more professional Washington libertarians, were worried about things that people say, like things like maybe what Dave Smith says or what other libertarians might say that could end up with bad headlines, and make people not like you anymore. And so the idea was, well, they're all soured on Republicans. Look at all the speak out there, Republicans, but libertarians still have a chance if we just toe this line, walk this tightrope. We can walk in there as the party that no one hates. And the truth of the matter is, no one hates you because they don't know that you exist. And as soon as they see you as a formidable force that they have to fight against, they're going to label you as a far right, white supremacist, Nazi organization, just because you want to cut taxes, essentially. Because disproportionately, some of those taxes might help minorities. And therefore, if you want to cut taxes, then you're probably a Nazi. And that's what's going to happen to libertarians.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole argument that we wanted to stay on the good side of people's minds when it came to how much they hated Republicans or Democrats, the only reason that exists is because no one cares about the Libertarian Party.
I think T-Dub makes a good point here in the Fed Haters Club. Join gmail.com. After leading in the polls for months, Javier Milei, I'm going to get to that.
Yeah,
by the way.
Yeah, that part.
That's a far-right libertarian economist tumbled to second place in Argentina's presidential election on Sunday, sending him to a runoff next month that will be an important test of strength for the global far-right movement. How strong is this far-right movement? Mr. Milei will face off against Sergio Massa, Argentina's center-left.
Can we call him Massa from now on? Massa? I know it's Massa. I know, but given his policies, I would like to call him Massa.
Massaga.
Yeah.
Massaga. Argentina's center-left economy minister, who finished a surprise first Sunday. Surprise. And who will now try to persuade voters that he can save the nation of $46 million from the economic turmoil that his government helped create. Now, this is kind of a cool runoff, I think, for Milei, because obviously he'll be able to campaign against the guy who perpetrated 120% inflation.
Well, and he has been.
And that's what, let me finish this real quick. That's what T-Dub said here. Lost to their finance minister. It says economy minister, probably same thing. They're at 100% inflation. They are putting their hopes in the current finance minister.
Literally the guy who's ministering the economy
into the ground.
And he's the one who came out first in the election.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And yeah, Costco said they label him center left.
Yeah, of course. So, Mr. Massaga, MAGA Assa.
Mm-hmm.
He earned 36.6% of the vote to Milei's 30%. That's with 98% of the votes counted. The candidates need to surpass 45% or 40 with a 10-point margin. So it's still pretty close.
It is. And the person who got 24% of the vote, I believe, is also a more right wing. If you were to look at it like with our politics, you could say there was a Republican, a Democrat, and a Libertarian running in the election. The Democrat is the one that came out with 36%. The Libertarian came out with 30%, and the Republican came out with 24%.
He was stealing votes from Milei.
Yeah. Exactly.
If he wouldn't have been in the race to steal votes, I mean.
And so in this case, if Milei can pull some of those 24%, more of the 24% than the other guy can, or girl, actually, I think. No, guy. Sorry. The girl is the one who lost, of course.
Now, under Massa's, it's Massa, but Massa's, under his leadership as the economy minister, let's see what's happened to Argentina. So it talks down, I'm skipping down here. It says that Milei's plans have gained traction with millions of Argentines as the nation grapples with its worst economic crisis in decades. And this, by the way, this Massa guy has been in the government for about 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yes.
So the nation grapples with its worst economic crisis in decades. Poverty is rising. Annual inflation is nearing 140%. And the value of the peso is plummeting. In April 2020, the start of the pandemic, $1 bought 80 pesos. Ahead of the vote, $1 bought 1,200 pesos. Ouch.
That's not good.
No, talk about the grocery bill going up. It's going up fast.
Yeah.
Quote, we are facing a criminal organization that won't stop committing atrocities to stay in power, Mr. Milei told supporters on Sunday night, referring to Mr. Massa's coalition. Milei has also attracted attention in Argentina and abroad for his bellicose political style that has drawn comparisons, which he has embraced, to Trump and
Bolsonaro.
Jair Bolsonaro, Brazil's former president. Milei has delivered harsh, often profane attacks against the press, his rivals, fake news, but in Spanish.
Yes.
Yeah. His rivals and foreign leaders, called for looser gun regulations, and in a recent interview with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson, called climate change part of, quote, the socialist agenda.
That is harsh.
That is a crime.
And profane.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Very far right.
Yeah.
Anyway, we don't have to keep going because we're out of time anyway, but...
We're out of radio time?
Yeah. The more time we go, the more time...
That's why you should go listen to the podcast.
You should. If you're on the radio, go listen to the podcast. If you're on a podcast, you should go listen to the radio.
Go back and forth.
Just turn on your radio right now.
See if you can match them up, actually.
Yeah.
You know?
Keep it playing until you hear
Keep the radio
our voices.
playing and then skip, in the podcast and see if you can match them up. That's true autism.
Well, the runoff election should be very exciting. I'm sure there will be claims of voter fraud and whatever, all that stuff. So it should be a really exciting time. Should be a fun time. All right, coming up, we're going to talk about some Israel and Gaza mess, and then we're going to do Dumb Bleep of the Week as well. Go to BernieLies.com in your browser to find links to our show, Liberty at Night.
Free Talk Live.
Ms. Maxwell's local council has decided that the pool, which is only 2 feet deep, needs a lifeguard. It's a kiddie pool. As if the lifeguard wasn't enough, she's also been told she must have insurance. The health and safety edict came after she wrote to the city council asking for permission to put a bigger pool in the communal garden outside her home. That was her mistake, asking for permission rather than forgiveness. But nonetheless, not only was she told it was too dangerous, but the council told her to empty the existing pool. The Portsmouth manager defended the ruling yesterday. Nigel Selly said, "We didn't have sufficient assurances that the risks associated with providing such a facility would be well managed. It's a facility. How dare you? How dare you erect this structure on your property?
It's an inflatable pool.
Without our permission."
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern at freetalklive.com. Eleutheromania, the insatiable desire for freedom. It's the new 3-song heavy metal EP from Captain Kickass. Available now on your favorite music app or get it directly from CaptainKickass.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 2 up next after the news, here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Israel's ambassador to the United Nations has called on the UN Secretary-General to resign following Antonio Guterres' comments on the Israel-Hamas conflict. Taking to the social media platform X, Gilad Erdan said Guterres is completely disconnected from the reality of the region. FSN's Jody Jacobs reports from UNHQ in New York.
In his address to the Council on Tuesday, Antonio Guterres says that it was important to recognize that the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. The Palestinian people, he said, have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation. This statement drew the ire of the Israeli delegation also attending the meeting. Taking to social media, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, called the Secretary-General's speech shocking. I call on him to resign immediately, he said. Erdan says there's no justification in talking to those who show compassion for the most terrible atrocities against the citizens of Israel.
Tom Emmer is the new Speaker-designate for the U.S. House of Representatives after Republican Party lawmakers in Congress voted behind closed doors to select him as the new nominee. FSN's Benji Hire reports.
The Republican whip, Tom Emmer, defeated a panel of 7 of his colleagues to earn the nomination, but it remains to be seen if he'll have the necessary numbers to actually get his hands on the gavel. For weeks now, the lower chamber has been in limbo, rudderless, frozen, without a speaker at the helm. The timing of all this is dire. Congress faces a government funding deadline in November. Meanwhile, crises unfold abroad, Ukraine and Israel fighting wars and asking for US aid. Emmer, a Minnesota congressman, needs 217 of his colleagues to back him when he decides to take the vote to the House floor.
Donald Trump's former fixer and lawyer, Michael Cohen, has told a New York court that the former president arbitrarily set his net worth. Cohen is testifying at Trump's civil fraud case, where the former president is accused of inflating the value of his real estate assets. 33 US states have filed a lawsuit accusing Meta of causing harm to children who use the company's online platforms, which include Facebook and Instagram. The lawsuit cites research showing that social media use is associated with issues such as depression. FSN's Ira Spitzer has more from San Francisco.
The complaint, filed in a Northern California court, alleges that Meta violated consumer protection laws by misleading the public over the dangers of its platforms. The states say that algorithms used by Facebook and Instagram are designed to push children into addictive and compulsive social media use in order to boost Meta's profits. They are seeking financial penalties and an injunction to stop the company from using certain features.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking again today at Argentina's presidential election and the populist figure of Javier Milei, the upstart candidate hoping to secure the country's top office in a runoff with Finance Minister Sergio Massa next month. Milei is a populist on steroids, an avowed libertarian, an often foul-mouthed campaigner with populist, eccentric views on how to cure the country's economic crisis. Inflation in Argentina is running at 140%, and the country is facing a debt crisis. Bob McMahon is watching its election from his post at America's Council on Foreign Relations.
He has come out with a very strong platform where the shaking up the economy and shaking up the way of doing business is front and center, starting off with proposals to dollarize the economy. Part of that would be achieved presumably by his plan to eliminate the central bank. He wants to cut public spending by 15%. He's also critical of the Pope, who's a fellow Argentinian, because he, quote, always stands on the side of evil because he supports taxes. But as it pertains to the Argentinian currency, the peso, he is referred to it in many ways, including as excrement. Some say his comments talking down the peso and talking up the dollar could have been responsible for it losing further value just since he emerged as a leading figure in the August primaries.
That runoff election is on November the 19th. Opinion polls in Argentina are notoriously unreliable. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations has called on the UN Secretary-General to resign following Antonio Guterres' comments on the Israel-Hamas conflict. Tom Emmer is the new Speaker-designate for the US House of Representatives. He was chosen in a secret ballot by Republican lawmakers. And Donald Trump's former fixer and lawyer Michael Cohen has told a New York court the former president arbitrarily set his net worth. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Tomorrow's my big day. I'm going to go in for surgery, and hopefully you'll come along. Now, I do have to admit that I am in a bit of pain, so I'm really looking forward to this procedure. I think we're both going to find out that having surgery just isn't as scary as it sounds.
We're covering our own Jim Haggerty's kidney stone removal surgery, and his surgery is now just minutes away. So, Dr. Atka, tell us what precautions we would take to prevent us from getting kidney stones.
Always stay hydrated. Water helps the kidneys break the stuff down.
Hear that, Jim? More water.
What?
More water. Maybe we should replace your coffee.
Please go away. Please. Ow, no.
That's a camera they're going to use to film the whole surgery from inside Jim's body,
Yes, that's going to be pushed into Jim's urethra as well. Now, normally they wouldn't do this. This is purely for the benefit of us watching it on TV.
All right, stick with us because first he's going to pop into the children's ward to cheer up some youngsters suffering from terminal illnesses.
This is the Onion News Network.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
What's up, everyone? This is Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Rising fees have made Bitcoin useless for purchases, but Dash continues to have fees less than 1 cent per transaction and has implemented really cool features to ensure it's undefeated as the most useful cryptocurrency in the marketplace. From a technical standpoint, Dash transactions are irreversible, and its network is protected from 51% attacks by their chain locks technology. There's no need to wait for a confirmation before considering the Dash transaction complete, so it's great for merchants. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. And a big thanks to Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash, dash.org. Well, last week, there was this uproar over this alleged hospital bombing in Gaza. And we're not going to talk to you about that live tonight, but the day after that, of course, there was a lot of confusion the night of. I thought we were about to go into World War III immediately. And of course, sorry for any innocents that were killed. But a lot of media organizations just ran with the narrative, spewed Hamas's propaganda, and there were a lot of protests and riots as a result. And a lot of people likely will never know what the actual truth of the matter is. I wanted to play for you what our reaction was the morning after in determining what actually happened. This is how you should do it. I am pumped today. I know one thing I'm going to listen to today, though, is going to be Ben Shapiro's episode later on, because the events from yesterday and overnight and this morning are going to be fun to hear him go off about. I think it's going to be interesting.
I'm still trying to figure out what happened.
I know. I'm going to tell you what happened.
Yesterday, I was not privy to any news. I wasn't on X. That's been my life lately.
I saw about it. I saw it first on X, people posting about it. And so I was like, well, I'm going to go watch the news. And so I was scrolling through, just rotating through different news channels. And it's funny, if you can always watch BBC America pretty much, because Fox and CNN will have basically the same diabetes medication commercial playing for like 8 minutes between segments. And so you can have time to go look at other news channels during that time. And BBC is almost, I think, like never on commercial, pretty much, which leads to a lot of people coming on and saying dumb things. That's the problem with the news these days. You know, it's 24-hour news cycle. And I liked it better when it was half a hour for the news cycle, but now it's 24 hours, which means that they got to talk about stuff all the time. Well, let's talk about this hospital bombing. Now, I will start with the story. Here's the story that I saw on X to begin with yesterday, and then I heard parroted on the news for hours and hours. And I watched quite a bit of news yesterday. The story was that there was a bomb, a missile, hit a hospital in Gaza, which was not only a place where people were going that were sick and injured and getting taken care of, but also a place where people were seeking refuge because they thought it was a safe place to go. And there were upwards of 5,000 people at this hospital. And immediately after this bombing takes place, the number that is sent out right afterwards from Palestine, or Hamas, as it's known, because that's their government, the number that's thrown out is that there are 500 dead Palestinians, including doctors and kids and different patients at the hospital. And that's terrible. I mean, do you agree that bombing a hospital is awful? I don't like it.
This is from Rashida Tlaib, too.
Yeah, so this is a good example of what you saw going around on Twitter X yesterday. Israel just bombed the Baptist hospital, killing 500 Palestinians, doctors, children, patients, just like that. POTUS thinks this is what happens when you refuse to facilitate a ceasefire and help de-escalate. Your war and destruction only approach has opened my eyes, and many Palestinian Americans and Muslim Americans like me, we will remember where you stood. And so you can scroll through tons and tons of posts on Twitter. You can watch the news at this time and just see everyone very, very angry about this bombing that took place. I thought that World War III was officially about to start because this at least seemed confirmed that this hospital was hit by a missile and that all these people died. I assumed the death toll was a whole lot higher than 500, that was just their initial estimates, but that they were going to find that more people were in fact killed by this. I was watching BBC. They had an eyewitness account of this attack on the hospital.
Whoa.
This eyewitness who BBC played multiple times throughout the night after doing the initial interview said that there was a F-16 flyover. He said it was an F-16 or an F-35. Does Israel have F-35s?
They probably do.
Okay, so it was an F-16 or an F-35 is what he said, went over and dropped 2 missiles or bombs on this hospital. He said he saw two attacks on the hospital, 2 missiles come down and hit it. Okay, and so this was replayed over and over again. And of course,
saw it with his own 2 eyes.
Saw it. He was there. He was across from the grounds. He saw that this happened, and the humanity and the devastation. Now, people died. Okay, that did happen, and it's terrible, and we don't like it when people die. Okay, but you do kind of have to dig in just a little bit deeper. Now, there were videos going on all over the place, and I mean, this was serious. Allegedly,
which hang on real quick before we move on. Just what she said here, I think, is important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At the end here, she said, your war and destruction. She's calling out the president for not de-escalating and all this stuff. But she's saying your war and destruction only approach.
War and destruction only should be hyphenated. Yes. Those are all the same.
Your war and destruction only approach has opened my eyes, and many Palestinian Americans and Muslim Americans like me, we will remember where you stood.
Now, he does kind of have a war and destruction only approach. I mean, been unwilling to, say, talk with Russia and try to talk this thing out when it comes to Ukraine. And I mean, she's not entirely wrong about any president's general approach when it comes to war. So I wouldn't.
But the whole "we will remember where you stood" thing.
Yeah.
This is what we talked about, what we've been talking about. Like, you cut the head off one terrorist, you create 7 more.
Mm-hmm. I even heard someone on Fox News earlier say that Israel knows that every time you kill one terrorist, you create 10 more. Was the number that he said out there. So with inflation,
Oh yeah,
that's what's happening. You devalued the terrorist.
And then the live group, I have the same question. They want to know how it's Trump's fault.
Oh, it's all Trump's fault.
Yeah,
we know that.
Okay.
Now, then you also had stuff like this. Let me go to Scott Horton's page. I'll go to Scott Horton. Now, Scott Horton actually did a good job on this. He just asked if some Iraq and Afghan vets would chime in. This is a post that says the hospital was hit with a very high probability by a JDAM bomb. This means it was the Israeli Air Force. This means it was a targeted attack. And what they're using to prove this is this video of the attack. Now, I will say the sound in the video sounds a lot closer to a really big bomb coming through, which makes me question the video itself. The thing is, like, you don't know what to believe in these scenarios. Any of these videos can be old. You have no idea what date the video was actually taken. You don't even know that it was actually a video from Gaza or a video from Israel. Yeah. And that's why you should always wait.
That's why you should only trust videos that come from the Ministry of Truth.
That's it. Which is why we need a Ministry of Truth, and I'm upset that Biden didn't go through with that.
Yeah.
So here's people comparing Hamas.
The thing is, you have to take in all this information and try to discern it and ask good questions, like Scott Horton did.
They're comparing Hamas missile sounds and JDAM sounds and the video that was allegedly from yesterday. I don't know. This is a JDAM. And then here is from last night or yesterday in Gaza. There's the JDAM, there's the hospital. Okay, so those two things sound similar.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very similar whistle to them. You match them up, they could be the same note as they come in, same frequency as they come in. I'm not sure. I don't know if the video could have been doctored, if it was real and this missile happened to be bigger, coming in faster, whatever it was. But at least a guy like Scott Horton, who is no ally of Israel, okay, at all, was just asking people to chime in on this.
You know what I think about when I see stuff like this is like, it's 2023. We're still blowing things up.
Yeah,
like we're at war.
It's very low tech.
I mean, we're not, I guess. Technically, we probably have people there, but it's so wild to me because we live in this bubble, as you talked about. You know, we walk the streets or drive our cars, and no one's listening for those whistle sounds. Like,
no, that's not a thing.
You know, it's not a thing here.
Now, here's a video from Al Jazeera. They were recording at the time, and this is a video I started seeing going around. And we're not going to understand, I think, anything from this. But
unless you speak Arabic.
But what you see is a rocket or a missile being launched from Gaza.
في صفوف الإسرائيليين ونحن نشير إلى أن هذه المدينة هي
looks like it misfires
للصواريخ منذ بداية هذه الحرب. عمدة المدينة كانت تحدث قبل أيام عن أكثر
something happens up there. I don't know if it got hit by a Iron Dome thing or whatever it was, but anyway, something happens.
وأحدث دمارا في
it comes down, and then there's the explosion at the hospital down there. So this is also interesting. So last night, I was thinking, well, the big question is going to be who killed all of these people at the hospital? Who destroyed this hospital? This is still terrible, regardless. And it is terrible. I mean, people died, and I'm sure some of them were innocent, you know. So it's still bad. But who was it? You know, are we going to debate this video from Al Jazeera? Or is it going to be, you know, Israel's going to release some things? Does that mean that we're not going to trust what Israel releases? Because I don't trust them any more than I trust them more than I trust Hamas, I guess, because I don't know. I mean, I think we could clearly say that they're more trustworthy, at least somewhat degree, than Hamas would be, right? But Israel released this alleged recording that they have between two Hamas operatives. And now then, even when Israel releases something like this, you've got to ask yourself, is this just because they posted this thing and it's an alleged conversation between a Hamas operative number 1 and number 2, and they're putting it out and there's subtitles at the bottom, I break it all the way down to, well, I don't even speak the language. So first off, I don't even trust the subtitles. Okay. Like that's how far down I'll go with it.
Yeah.
And then second, I don't know where this recording came from. Could have been a couple actors that they had record this last night.
They got it
put
out this fast?
You know? Yeah. I don't know. But but this is what they put out. They have a recording of 2 Hamas operatives talking. I'm telling you, this is the first time that we see a missile like this falling. And so that's why we are saying it belongs to the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. What? They are saying it belongs to Palestinian Islamic Jihad. It's from us? It looks like it? Who says this? They are saying that the shrapnel from the missile is local shrapnel and not like Israeli shrapnel. Who's they? What are you saying? They're not telling you his name.
It's anonymous.
Yeah. But God bless, it couldn't have found another place to explode. Never mind. Yes, they shot it from the cemetery behind the hospital. What? They shot it coming from the cemetery behind the hospital and it misfired and fell on them. There's a cemetery behind the hospital, and now they just talk back and forth about how this guy didn't know there was a cemetery behind the hospital. Like,
Me neither.
This is the first time I'm hearing of this. There's a cemetery. Now he's giving them directions to where the cemetery is.
And then it's like, oh yeah, I remember now.
That cemetery. Yeah, I remember that one. So anyway, the end of the video kind of sounds...
Now I guess I mean this is coming from the IDF, so I'm guessing they probably have tapped some people's cell phones. But how do we know that? How do we know that? You know, how do we know that these are actual?
The sound from the video, if you believe that video is real and that it hasn't been doctored and that people haven't just taken the sound from a JDAM video and put it in the sound of that video, sounds like one of those JDAM videos I saw. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't even know for sure that was a JDAM in the other JDAM videos because I didn't verify the missile before it was fired in the thing.
Yeah.
And this is how I
don't know damn about JDAM.
This is how I actually approach situations when I'm seeing stuff on Twitter. And it seems like that's how people should approach things because you never really know what's going on. But all these people out here know what's going on because there are supposedly protests I'm not supposedly... turn on the news and there's protests at all of these embassies, in our embassy in Lebanon, and here's an interesting video. I saw this and said the crowds rushing to the Israeli embassy. I'm like, this is taken during rush hour. Like, I don't know. Is this a crowd rushing towards the Israeli embassy somewhere? Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Maybe a concert just let out somewhere.
The only I can tell is it looks mostly peaceful.
So far it does.
Yeah.
But there's protests going on. Insurrections happening. At a gate that says police. And so basically the idea is that there were immediately protests and riots starting in the West Bank because of this bombing of the hospital, which it was Israel that bombed the hospital, according to Hamas, according to Gaza, according to their authorities. And I'll just say, okay, I don't know exactly where it came from. I'm no musicians. I'm a musicians expert, but I'm no munitions expert, you know?
Yeah.
I should write a song about that. Scott Horton, to his credit, says still many conflicting claims and no consensus here. This is responding to his tweet about getting Iraq and Afghan vets to chime in. Seems like the specific claims about a falling rocket are credible, but such a huge explosion looks like a strike to vets who called them in, but it was all fiery and red. Fuel exploding, maybe, rather than high explosives. So
was there fuel or other bombs or things in the basement of this hospital?
Well, that's another thing I was thinking.
Is where Hamas has been keeping.
So then I go like, okay, maybe this rocket came down. Super unlucky, by the way. It's one thing to have a misfiring rocket. It's another for it to hit a very valuable target for Israel when it comes down. Right. Okay, so then I start conflicting again in my mind when I'm trying to figure that out. let's get on to more of what happened. So this is what I didn't expect this morning fully. And it's the fact that the hospital's still there and it was just a bomb that landed in the parking lot and destroyed some cars. And that's what was on fire.
So the
hospital's still there.
Fine.
Yeah. The hospital is
I'm
still...
sure some people might have been hurt.
There are probably people in the parking lot because they said that there were like 5,000 people at the hospital, a bunch of them taking refuge there because they assumed it was a safe place that wasn't going to get bombed. So you can look at this video that is allegedly from the morning when the sun comes up.
Did you see the cemetery?
Now, I haven't seen the cemetery yet, but what is destroyed is the parking lot. The pavers are going to need replaced out there in that parking lot of the hospital, and the car insurance company is taking a big hit.
I know a guy who can fix those cars.
So those cars are in pretty rough shape.
Yeah.
So you see cars
It's got
destroyed.
good bones, though.
There's some shingles off the roof.
I try not to make jokes, but I can't help it.
I mean, no doubt people died here, but this is what it actually looks like. The building was not hit. The building took some damage. There's some blurred out stuff there. Okay, so some windows blown out, stuff like that. But that's the part that I wasn't exactly ready for. Was not only were we not arguing or needing to figure out whether or not it was Israel who bombed the hospital or Hamas who bombed the hospital, but was the hospital bombed?
Let's start there.
That was the next part.
Yeah.
And immediately after, Hamas or Palestine releases this figure of 500 people are dead at this hospital, doctors, nurses, stuff like that.
1,000 children.
That other person said, who knows how many, and then you get the pictures. Like, this is what it looks like outside the hospital where whatever this was actually dropped. Now, at this point, there was a picture of a crater that I guess maybe I didn't save up here. There was a picture of the crater with the parking lot. You could tell it was a crater in the parking lot. And the crater was not big enough to be a JDAM if you compared it to other alleged craters created by JDAM bombs. So it looks like the story of a rocket misfiring is true. It then also looks like it did not hit the hospital directly. It hit the parking lot of the hospital directly. And something exploded out there. Could have been a tank of fuel, because I heard they've been trying to send fuel to the hospitals to keep their generators going. Something like that. Scott Horton mentioned that the fire was all red and looked different. So
it could have been a falling missile, even.
Yeah, could have been.
Yeah.
And now we'll just look at this report from Sky News now to kind of clear some of this up for us.
Big fireball there. Within the grounds of the hospital. The missile seems to have landed in the car park. Over the course of the night, other images have emerged and quite a lot more evidence. The Israelis are putting a lot of their material out there. Of course, they don't have the missile itself. That belongs to Hamas, as it were. And if you could get a look at the missile, the fragments of it, then you'd tell a lot about where it came from. But here's the image in the day. And there you can see that's where the missile hit. There's the crater, not particularly big. There are the vehicles that were absolutely completely destroyed by the missile, but here are the other vehicles that were burned out. This doesn't look like a huge explosion, and one wonders how the death toll could be quite so high. If people were all camped out in the car park, it's plausible, certainly, but that number still sounds pretty high. Looking at these images, plus what the Israelis have indicated, does seem to increase the likelihood that this was a missile off track, probably not an Israeli missile, more likely, as they say, to be a Palestinian Islamic Jihad missile, because a whole series of missiles were launched at that time, and they've got evidence of that, and one of them seems to have collapsed, have gone down into the car park here. But what is interesting about this image from a purely technical point of view is the relatively limited damage to the cars, most of which are still in their original car parking spaces.
We're going to continue with, I know it seems self-serving, but it is. That's why it seems that way. We're going to continue with what we believe is the proper way to approach a confusing situation like this, where you have multiple sides saying different things. and this is how people in the media should do it on Free Talk Live.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Israel's ambassador to the United Nations has called on the UN Secretary-General to resign following Antonio Guterres' comments on the Israel-Hamas conflict. Taking to the social media platform X, Gilad Erdan said Guterres is completely disconnected from the reality of the region. FSN's Jody Jacobs reports from UNHQ in New York.
In his address to the Council on Tuesday, Antonio Guterres says that it was important to recognize that the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. The Palestinian people, he said, have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation. This statement drew the ire of the Israeli delegation also attending the meeting. Taking to social media, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, called the Secretary-General's speech shocking. I call on him to resign immediately, he said. Erdan says there's no justification in talking to those who show compassion for the most terrible atrocities against the citizens of Israel.
Tom Emmer is the new Speaker-designate for the U.S. House of Representatives after Republican Party lawmakers in Congress voted behind closed doors to select him as the new nominee. FSN's Benji Hire reports.
The Republican whip, Tom Emmer, defeated a panel of 7 of his colleagues to earn the nomination, but it remains to be seen if he'll have the necessary numbers to actually get his hands on the gavel. For weeks now, the lower chamber has been in limbo, rudderless, frozen, without a speaker at the helm. The timing of all this is dire. Congress faces a government funding deadline in November. Meanwhile, crises unfold abroad, Ukraine and Israel fighting wars and asking for US aid. Emmer, a Minnesota congressman, needs 217 of his colleagues to back him when he decides to take the vote to the House floor.
Donald Trump's former fixer and lawyer, Michael Cohen, has told a New York court that the former president arbitrarily set his net worth. Cohen is testifying at Trump's civil fraud case, where the former president is accused of inflating the value of his real estate assets. 33 US states have filed a lawsuit accusing Meta of causing harm to children who use the company's online platforms, which include Facebook and Instagram. The lawsuit cites research showing that social media use is associated with issues such as depression. FSN's Ira Spitzer has more from San Francisco.
The complaint filed in a Northern California court alleges that Meta violated consumer protection laws by misleading the public over the dangers of its platforms. The states say that algorithms used by Facebook and Instagram are designed to push children into addictive and compulsive social media use in order to boost Meta's profits. They are seeking financial penalties and an injunction to stop the company from using certain features.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
What's up? This is Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. We've been going through our coverage of the hospital parking lot bombing that happened in Gaza last week. And as I said before we started the last segment, it's important that this is how you approach situations. Don't jump to conclusions. Don't just think that you know exactly what happened, because you might not. And that's generally how we approach everything, especially when it comes to war, because the fog of war is a real thing. If you enjoy the things that you're hearing, we'll also be getting on to some other stuff as well at the end of this segment. But if you're enjoying what you're hearing, then make sure you go find Good Morning Liberty, which is our daily podcast. Find Good Morning Liberty wherever you get your podcast. You can go to bernielies.com. And that'll take you to whatever link you need to go. Or you can watch us. We record the video every day. You can go to YouTube or Rumble or Odyssey. But let's get back into this segment about the hospital bombing.
No evident damage to the buildings. Clearly, a lot of people were killed and injured in this explosion, but it doesn't look like, as it were, the mass explosion inside a hospital that it was made out to be last night. That doesn't detract, of course, from the damage it's doing, but a lot more of this imagery and evidence, I think, will emerge during the day. We'll only ever have a probability about this because the Israelis can't definitively prove that it wasn't one of their missiles, but they've produced quite a lot of circumstantial evidence. And of course, Hamas will always claim definitively that it was an Israeli missile, and we'll see what evidence they choose to produce it.
Okay, there we go. So the lesson to take away from this, I think, is that you have to wait and not rush to judgment on things when it's not exactly clear what happened. And that's a lesson that I think Rashida Tlaib should take, and many other people that I saw online last night talking about this war crime and bombing a hospital and all that. And that does not excuse anything that we've said. We're, disagreeing with this war or the way that it's being carried out or whatever. It's just these single instances that happened during the war can be like inflection points for other things happening, like other countries getting involved, or you have massive protests that erupt and let's say innocent civilians get killed in a protest in the West Bank, or you have people that are trying to storm these different embassies around the world and something bad happens there. And so then we decide that we're going to get involved there because of what happened in Lebanon or wherever else it was that was going on. So when you see the people rushing to judgment and then rushing to storm and the protest, it just really kind of shows me that we should wait and that we should try to verify things. And there's really no reason to take Hamas's word over Israel. And you do have to remember that you shouldn't just trust either one of them all the time. Like, we don't trust either one of them all the time, but there is a group of people who just trust Hamas or Palestinian authorities all the time. And that's not right either. They all have an incentive to lie. They've all got an incentive to get you on their side and fighting for their cause. And so that's why I tweeted this out yesterday, which I just wanted to make the point. I tweeted this out that when something bad happens in a war, it's best to assume that both sides are lying and repeal the 16th Amendment. So I think that that's the lesson to take away from this. Now, why did I say repeal the 16th Amendment? One, it was kind of funny. And also, two, we need to defund the war machine. And that's where they get all of their money. So I am serious about that you need to remember that in these wars where these sides are fighting against each other, that we don't need to be involved. We don't need to rush to judgment on any of these things. And we need to make the government work for our money rather than making us work for the government. Mm-hmm. So that, as they say, is that. And as someone, a lot of comments in the group right now, a lot of major news sources did seem to pick the Palestinian side. Now they were, even BBC would say, we haven't confirmed this, but they kept playing that eyewitness account over and over again. Now it's an eyewitness account. I don't trust eyewitness accounts. If I were ever on a murder trial and there were an eyewitness account, I would completely black out while the person was talking because there's no reason to have that mush filling up my mind. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, the data on eyewitnesses is pretty bleak.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Really, really bad stuff.
Well, actually, the data's good. What turns out to be true is pretty bleak.
The problem here is that it's too late. That's one of the bigger problems. Like, we can sit here and prove this now, but for the people that are on the ground in Gaza or wherever else it is, in the West Bank or in Lebanon or wherever they are, it's too late for many of them because they're not going to get the information, especially if they're in Gaza, because the only information they're going to get is word of mouth information. Someone would have to listen to this episode and then explain it, trying their hardest to explain it as well as we just did, which they would fail at doing that. And then they wouldn't be able to convince people otherwise. So that's the problem. It's too late. The sides have already been picked. The propaganda's already gone out. And people are going to act according to yesterday's news reports. So even people who follow Rashida Tlaib, there will be a portion of those people who are never going to hear what actually happened. And even if they did hear it, they would probably deny it because it would be too hard for them to admit. Or they would probably turn around and say, yeah, but they've bombed hospitals before. You know, they've committed war crimes before. And so then it wouldn't matter to them anyway, which they'd be partially right about, but they would just be trying to deflect from talking about how they were wrong in this situation. So anyhow, that's the story so far of the hospital bombing. And now a couple white pills before
the hospital parking lot bombing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the hospital property bombing.
Yeah. The car park.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he kept saying.
Happened.
The car park. It's got car park.
Okay. One more thing. It does connect to Israel, but we'll call it a white pill because this is something we decided to talk about like on Tuesday after this whole mess started, was whether or not people were able to defend themselves. And so, Charlie, you can do this one.
This is from Reason. Israel eases gun restrictions amidst security failures. So in the wake of Hamas terrorist organization's murderous attack on Israel, the country's government is admitting, not for the first time, that even Israel's extensive security apparatus can't be everywhere to protect everyone. Under the pressure of bloody events, officials are again making it easier for civilians to acquire and carry firearms for self-defense.
Okay.
Who would have thought?
Weird.
Quote, today I directed the Firearms Licensing Division to go on an emergency operation in order to allow as many citizens as possible to arm themselves, announced National Security Minister. His name,
yeah.
He's a National Security Minister for Israel.
He administers national security.
That's right. Quote, the plan will take effect within 24 hours. So don't get shot in the next day. Mm-hmm. By no means does the order eliminate the country's tight restrictions on guns.
The plan will take effect in the next 20. Now, I get it, but it's like it takes a day to stop preventing people from arming themselves, you know? Like you got to wind down. All you got to do is stop stopping.
Yeah. And as soon as this threat is over, we're going right back. Okay?
Sorry, white pill.
But it is an acknowledgement that too many Israelis were caught with limited access to the means of self-defense when Hamas terrorists crossed the border from Gaza and attacked civilians. So, and see, this is the problem. It's now like 2 weeks later. So the terrorists had 2 weeks to come in and do some damage before you could protect yourself.
You know what's crazy is if they relax like all the restrictions and everyone in Israel had a gun, and you look at this like 10 years later, it's going to be, because it's hard to research things if it takes more than 10 seconds. Well, anti-gun activists would say, well, Israel, every person in Israel has a gun and they got attacked by Hamas and over 1,000 people were killed. So what are you talking about? So what I'm saying is you wouldn't be able to tell the 2 week difference in the legalization of gun ownership when researching from 10 years in the future, unless you keep digging and keep digging. This is how these things happen.
Yeah. So, relying on a steel door, the terrorists were moving from one house to another trying to kill us. This guy told The Telegraph, an Israeli guy. Quote, they knocked on our doors and pretended to be Israeli soldiers. We locked our house. We stayed in our safe room. It has a steel door and very thick bulletproof walls. It is only this that has kept us safe from death. One of his friends had a gun and he managed to escape and join other men who were trying to defend our village. That friend wasn't alone among the civilian population, as the IDF were caught flat-footed and scrambled to catch up with events. With the IDF's division headquarters under attack, it was almost impossible for the chief of staff in Tel Aviv to find out what was going on or how to respond in those crucial early hours of the assault. You see, when there's restrictions on guns and then your government's under attack, it's on the list of priorities to unrestrict, and get people access to be able to defend themselves. Like, it's not one thing that really.
Well, see,
it's not like they can just pull a lever, like an emergency lever, and then all of a sudden the gun restrictions are lifted.
And then a gun show pops up all of a sudden, and you get to go exploit the loophole. All of a sudden.
Exactly.
Yeah, they open up the loopholes.
There's like a firearm lever,
loophole
open. That just. And there's a pop-up gun show.
Open the loopholes! So,
sir, there's a delay. There's a delay in opening the loopholes.
I wanted to make this point that when people say, well, how are you going to protect yourself if your guns are taken away or you can't have a gun? They say, well, the police are here to protect you, or the IDF is here to protect you. And what Hamas did first was, you saw those videos, they drove straight up to the police station and started attacking the police. And so what's the natural thing that the police are going to do? They're going to be like, oh crap, I bet other people's houses are in danger right now. Like, no, they're going to defend themselves.
Yeah.
And so they're busy defending themselves.
They dodging bullets?
Is that like, I got to get to other people's house real quick. There's bullets whistling by.
It's my duty to protect other people.
No, they're bogged down defending themselves. And so that was smart on the part of Hamas. And then they're attacking IDF. And then, so they're all busy right now. And so while they're busy, they also go door to door killing people at will, because most of them don't have guns. Only 3% of people in Israel have guns. And one of the worst places was the Israeli kibbutz, which I'm still betting, have not verified, that this commune probably did not have super high gun ownership. I could be wrong on that. I don't know.
Well, considering how many people died.
Like a lot of them.
Yes.
Big percentage.
Yeah. Trained citizens who hold weapons contribute to the feeling of security.
Oh, we don't have to keep going on this. Sorry, that's why I didn't scroll down.
No.
Oh, unless you want to.
No, I'm just...
No, keep... He's like Ron Burgundy. You put anything on the teleprompter, like he'll just...
Israel's security cabinet has approved measures to make it easier for Israelis to carry guns after two separate attacks by Palestinians in Jerusalem over the past 2 days. The BBC reported that in January. So
they made it easier, I guess.
They should just allow people to defend themselves. This is why the Second Amendment is so important. This is why we talk about these things that we talk about. In times of peace, people want to restrict your access, but you never know when you're going to see paragliders, coming across the ocean trying to attack you.
So the white pill here, the takeaway from this, and Reason gets the white pill correct also, they are, by doing this, they are acknowledging that the people should have more guns so they can defend themselves. And so they are trying to ease restrictions because they are recognizing that what people needed in this situation were guns to defend themselves instead of just being sitting ducks the whole time.
Yeah.
Which is what they ended up being. So that is a good thing, at least for our arguments, not good for the people who needed this a few weeks ago.
Yeah. And it sucks that it has to be proven out this way. Like people have to die for you to prove the point.
Hey, let's do something not political real quick. We used to talk about like medical advancements in modern science, cool stuff like that. Here,
another white pill.
Let's break away from the politics for a second. And let's talk about this woman who's become the first human to be fitted with a nerve and bone fused bionic limb.
So Terminator is here.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking about. I'm glad that you caught that. There you go.
We
got it in the group already. So you can see in this picture, now there's no video in this article, she's using a tiny screwdriver to turn a screw on what I'm assuming is something fake that just has screws on it for her to practice turning screws.
It's a practice screw turning toy.
I mean, that's pretty cool. I give it a 10 out of 10 for creativity, 1 out of 10 for its, ability to not be creepy. But they did put like a glove on it that doesn't just look, straight up like Terminator or anything. But this is awesome. A Swedish woman named Karen. See, complaining will get you somewhere. Okay. She's been complaining to the manager of extremities. And here she is being the first human to get this bionic hand.
They say the squeaky wheel gets the attention.
That's how it is. That's how it is. A Swedish woman named Karen has become the first. It's Karen with an I, by the way, Karin, just so you know. Has become the first person to ever receive a below-the-elbow prosthetic that fuses bone with metal and electrodes. An incredible feat of robotics and biology, it's seen to represent an eventual gold standard of prosthesis that has encouraged the interdisciplinary science team to believe it will be available to other amputees in other circumstances in the future. So, I don't know. It's cool. Charlie, your dad, he doesn't have any legs. That'd be cool if this were available back when that happened. Could have legs eventually.
Got no legs.
Actually, technically, right now, he would just have hands on his legs because I'm sure that's only as far as they've gone. Yeah. But I just like that they're trying stuff like this. And I think in the future, amputees are just going to be able to get body parts put back on. Okay? That's cool.
That is cool.
That's a cool thing.
That is really cool.
Makes you not feel so bad for blowing them up overseas,
Eventually, when we're all just robots.
Yeah, there you go. We got Neuralink. You can have your bionic arm. All kinds of stuff.
I think all you need is a human brain, and then you can just build everything else. Right?
Yeah, sorry for throwing non-white pills in there. My bad. In that description. But hey, it's the best time to be alive. The better time to be alive is probably like 50 years from now. Probably be even better. Okay? We might still be here. We'll see. With advances in modern science.
I don't know if I want to be.
We'll see.
But we'll see.
We'll see if we'll still be here. All right, let's get on to this one that was really cool. I'm sure a lot of people in the group have already seen it, but I would like for Charlie and I to laugh together while watching this like we did yesterday, the first time that we saw it. This is Pierre Poilievre.
I don't speak French.
I believe is how you say his last name. From what I can tell, he's going to be trying to take on Justin.
You took French a couple of years ago. I did.
2 semesters.
Oh.
So 1 year of French.
But the way that we did our semesters is 2 years.
I've learned more Spanish on Duolingo than I did French in 2 semesters of French. So.
Then you can't pronounce his name.
Well, I don't know how he says it. Okay, he's getting interviewed by a journalist. This kind of reminds me of...
This guy's running for prime minister, by the way.
This is that... it reminds me of that time Elon Musk got interviewed by a journalist and kind of pulled the same thing. This is a great way to handle people when they're trying to get you to defend baseless claims or to defend things from their point of view and from their reality, from their moral high ground. This is him taking the moral high ground, flipping the script, and making them the one that is wrong. And he is the one that's on the moral high ground. They're crazy, not him. And by the way, if you haven't seen the video, the dude is eating an apple while he is making one of my favorite videos of 2023.
Relaxed as can be.
I know. It's so great. I want to be this guy when I grow up.
On the topic, in terms of your sort of strategy currently, you're obviously taking the populist pathway.
What does that mean?
Well, appealing to people's more emotional levels, I would guess. Certainly you tap very strong ideological language quite frequently.
Like what?
Left wing, this and that, right wing. It's that type of ideological spectrum.
I never really talk about left or right.
Anyways, I don't
really believe in that.
Okay, a lot of people would say that you're simply taking a page out of the Donald Trump book.
Like which people would say that?
Well, I'm sure a great many Canadians, but...
Like who?
I don't know who, but...
Well, you're the one who asked the question, so you must know somebody.
Okay. I'm sure there's some out there, but anyways, the point of this question is, why should Canadians trust you with their vote, given, not just the sort of ideological inclination in terms of taking the page out of Donald Trump's book, but
what are you
also
talking about? What page? What page? Can you give me a page? Give me the page. You keep saying
in terms of turning things quite dramatically in terms of Trudeau and the left wing and all of this. I mean, you make quite a it's quite a play that you make on it. So I'm
not sure. I don't know what your question is.
Then forget that. Why should Canadians trust you with their vote?
Common sense. Common sense for a change. We're going to make common sense common in this country. We don't have any common sense in the current government. The guy prints $600 billion, grows our money supply by 32% in 3 years. That's growing the money 8 times faster than the economy. No wonder we have the worst inflation in 4 decades. I'm going to cap spending, cut waste, so that we can balance the budget and bring down inflation and interest rates. You'll want to be able to pay your mortgage again? You want to be able to afford rent? Then you have to vote for Pierre Poilievre, because I'm the only one with a common sense plan that will bring back the buying power of your paycheck.
Okay, that's pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff.
It is.
What I really like about this, and we've talked about this a bunch of times, he completely, like I said beforehand, he completely flips the moral high ground. This guy tries to come to him with this, you're compared to Donald Trump, you're a populist candidate, you're turning up the heat and the rhetoric and all that. And he completely flips the moral high ground, becomes the one who's right. This guy's asking him crazy questions. He doesn't need, you see, they try to get you to defend yourself. They try to get you to defend your ideas as if you're wrong and they're the one who's right. And he completely flips it. I don't have to defend this. First off, what are you even talking about? And then he gets to get his thing in there at the end of it, like the inflation. And he does a great job of selling himself. You want to be able to pay your mortgage. You want to be able to do this. You're going to vote for Pierre Poilievre, is how he said his own last name at the end of that video. So just remember, now this guy, I'm not... Before I completely link us with him, this is a great video. I don't know everything about this guy. I don't know what all of his policies are. I would suspect we disagree on many things, probably a lot of things. But
like we do Canadians,
yes, in general.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But we have the moral high ground, and we have, in my opinion, ceded that to the other side, and shouldn't do that. Remember, when you're getting attacked for these views or whatever, you're the one who's right. Like, we know that. You don't have to defend the fact that people own themselves and shouldn't just be controlled by people with guns.
Well, and the other key thing here is you make people be specific.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when they make these like overarching claims, like, well, people are saying that you do this. It's like, who?
Mm-hmm.
Who's saying it? Give me an example. Don't try to defend like a broad, baseless claim.
Mm-hmm.
Make the person prove their point. And then when he got down to something specific, he actually at the very beginning he was like, "Well, I don't even believe in left versus right.
Mm-hmm.
So that can't be true." And then you can much easier. It's much easier to defend yourself.
Well, because he destroyed the basis of every one of the guy's questions.
Yes. And then you can tell the interviewer gets real nervous.
Oh, yeah. He was like, oh, no. Coming up, we're going to be doing Dumb Bleep of the Week. That's everyone's favorite segment, so you don't want to miss it. That's where we count down the dumbest things that happened in politics over the last week. And our live group, the Fed Haters Club, join gml.com. They vote on the dumbest thing for Dumb Bleep of the Week. That's coming right up.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Rising fees have made Bitcoin useless for purchases, but Dash continues to have fees less than 1 cent per transaction, and its features ensure Dash is undefeated as the most useful cryptocurrency in the marketplace. From a technical standpoint, Dash transactions are irreversible, and its network is protected from 51% attacks by their Chainlocks technology. There's no need to wait for a confirmation before considering a Dash transaction complete, so it's great for merchants. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at Dash.org. Big thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit Dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 3 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Israel's ambassador to the United Nations has called on the UN Secretary-General to resign following Antonio Guterres' comments on the Israel-Hamas conflict. Taking to the social media platform X, Gilad Erdan said Guterres is completely disconnected from the reality of the region. FSN's Jody Jacobs reports from UNHQ in New York.
In his address to the Council on Tuesday, Antonio Guterres says that it was important to recognize that the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. The Palestinian people, he said, have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation. This statement drew the ire of the Israeli delegation also attending the meeting. Taking to social media, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, called the Secretary-General's speech shocking. I call on him to resign immediately, he said. Erdan says there's no justification in talking to those who show compassion for the most terrible atrocities against the citizens of Israel.
Tom Emmer is the new Speaker-designate for the U.S. House of Representatives after Republican Party lawmakers in Congress voted behind closed doors to select him as the new nominee. FSN's Benji Hire reports.
The Republican whip, Tom Emmer, defeated a panel of 7 of his colleagues to earn the nomination, but it remains to be seen if he'll have the necessary numbers to actually get his hands on the gavel. For weeks now, the lower chamber has been in limbo, rudderless, frozen, without a speaker at the helm. The timing of all this is dire. Congress faces a government funding deadline in November. Meanwhile, crises unfold abroad, Ukraine and Israel fighting wars and asking for US aid. Emmer, a Minnesota congressman, needs 217 of his colleagues to back him when he decides to take the vote to the House floor.
Donald Trump's former fixer and lawyer, Michael Cohen, has told a New York court that the former president arbitrarily set his net worth. Cohen is testifying at Trump's civil fraud case, where the former president is accused of inflating the value of his real estate assets. 33 US states have filed a lawsuit accusing Meta of causing harm to children who use the company's online platforms, which include Facebook and Instagram. The lawsuit cites research showing that social media use is associated with issues such as depression. FSN's Ira Spitzer has more from San Francisco.
The complaint, filed in a Northern California court, alleges that Meta violated consumer protection laws by misleading the public over the dangers of its platforms. The states say that algorithms used by Facebook and Instagram are designed to push children into addictive and compulsive social media use in order to boost Meta's profits. They are seeking financial penalties and an injunction to stop the company from using certain features.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking again today at Argentina's presidential election and the populist figure of Javier Milei, the upstart candidate hoping to secure the country's top office in a runoff with Finance Minister Sergio Massa next month. Milei is a populist on steroids, an avowed libertarian, an often foul-mouthed campaigner with populist, eccentric views on how to cure the country's economic crisis. Inflation in Argentina is running running at 140%, and the country is facing a debt crisis. Bob McMahon is watching its election from his post at America's Council on Foreign Relations.
He has come out with a very strong platform where the shaking up the economy and shaking up the way of doing business is front and center, starting off with proposals to dollarize the economy. Part of that would be achieved presumably by his plan to eliminate the central bank. He wants to cut public spending by 15%. He's also critical of the Pope, who's a fellow Argentinian, because he, quote, always stands on the side of evil because he supports taxes. But as it pertains to the Argentinian currency, the peso, he is referred to it in many ways, including as excrement. Some say his comments talking down the peso and talking up the dollar could have been responsible for it losing further value just since he emerged as a leading figure in the August primaries.
That runoff election is on November the 19th. Opinion polls in Argentina are notoriously unreliable. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations has called on the UN Secretary-General to resign following Antonio Guterres' comments on the Israel-Hamas conflict. Tom Emmer is the new Speaker-designate for the US House of Representatives. He was chosen in a secret ballot by Republican lawmakers. And Donald Trump's former fixer and lawyer Michael Cohen has told a New York court the former president arbitrarily set his net worth. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Millions of Americans are irrationally feared dead following a train derailment near Wilmington, Delaware.
Less than 200 people were aboard the train, but because no names have been released yet, countless more are being imagined trapped inside the wreckage by worried parents and overly anxious friends.
And the list of imagined victims is growing by the minute. From brothers-in-law who live in Delaware, who usually drive but could possibly have been on that train, to friends who went to Delaware on a business trip and may have been next to the tracks for some reason when the train derailed.
And sadly, we're getting reports that even those who have never been to Delaware are now also among those irrationally thought killed.
Oh, and we are just now getting word from Homeland Security that they're now warning people their fears may spiral into a wholly new fear that their loved ones never existed at all and are just byproducts of a drug-induced lucid dream in which their consciousness is currently imprisoned.
Such a shame, since this is reality.
There is nothing beyond this. To believe otherwise would be folly.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
What's up, y'all? This is Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live Network from Nashville, Tennessee. On this show, we do something called Dumb Bleep of the Week. That is where the live group, the Fed Haters Club, puts in their submissions. People on Twitter put in submissions. I put in submissions, and then we pick about 10 of them. And we have the live group, the Fed Haters Club, vote on which one was the dumbest. They will move on to Dumb Bleep of the Year. The winner will get a trophy. It's very fun to do. And it's everyone's favorite episode. You look at our stats, all of our top episodes are Dumb Bleep episodes. We might as well just do this episode.
People like
week.
the dumb.
Yeah, they really like listening to us make fun of dumb things, which is kind of what we do every day. We just don't call it that. But anyhow, we're going to get going on these. We've already got the submissions put into the Dumb Bleep of the Week voting channel. And I reckon we might as well get on to number one. Now, number one, this might be confusing for some people. All right. Okay, let's get on to Dumb Bleep number one. This does not mean that we're pro-Hamas, by the way, because we're not. As we've said, every single one of those sons of deserves to die a traitor's death.
Terrorism.
Absolutely.
Just like I'm against death.
Yeah. Those are the videos of people getting killed that I'd like to see.
They go against the basic principles of like don't hurt people and don't take their stuff.
Yeah. So
and don't take people.
Basically anyone who's not a libertarian. That's who we kidding. But there is this thing going on where, listen, there's Palestine, there's Gaza, and then there's Hamas. I do understand that Hamas is the elected regime of Gaza, but I don't think that we should make the assumption, and this assumption
that
is
people actually had a choice.
Yeah, the assumption is necessary for when you see like, oh, someone blew up a building and it had 100 civilians in it and they all died. The assumption is necessary for you to justify seeing civilians die. Like you have to jump through these loops and say, well, they voted for Hamas. They're in power. This is who they wanted, and so they all support it. I don't think that's true. You could look at a very simple fact, like the fact that we don't support what the American regime does, and we've been here for 35 and 36 years, and we don't support what the American regime does. So do we deserve to die for what they do? There's millions of potential libertarians out there. There's a bunch of Republicans that don't support Biden, the current president that's out there. And so when you look at an elected government of a land, you can't just say, well, that means that government represents all of the people inside of this land. We have it right here in America where the elected government doesn't represent all of the people. So why would you think in an area where you would just get shot in the street for not supporting the government that all the people support the government in the land?
Yeah. It's like saying all the North Koreans support Kim Jong-un.
Yeah. Well, they don't rise up against them. They're not protesting against what Kim Jong-un is doing because they don't want to die. They've done the calculation. Anyhow, Wilfred Riley says it's not an exaggeration to say that people who are pro-Palestine in any political sense are pro-Hamas. Hamas is the elected government of the currently prominent chunk of Palestine. Okay, so
that seems like an exaggeration, actually, though, Wilford.
Now, there are a lot of people at these pro-Palestine rallies we've seen around the world and in the U.S. that actually are pro-Hamas, what Hamas did, and that's really dumb, and that's really gross. Okay, Mises Caucus had a nice little post on here, said, so being pro-America means being pro-Biden. No, clearly it does not mean that you are pro-Biden or pro what the current government is in the United States. Here's another post from Dinesh D'Souza. This is in response to a New York Post article. The New York Post article says progressives call for U.S. to take in some of the expected 1 million Gaza refugees. So that's the story. Not to take in all 1 million, but some of the 1 million Gaza refugees. And Dinesh D'Souza says, Hamas in America. This is how progressives define progress. So any refugee from Gaza is Hamas, I guess. That's what it would be. For the same reason that if you move to another country, that would be the same thing as Biden in America. You know, I'm just saying, if you connect those two things together, that's what they are. You have to believe that there are people who live in a country who are too scared to stand up against their government, who do not support their government. Do not make this rationalization, this justification, so you don't have to feel bad when civilians get killed in a conflict. And Clint Russell made a really good, described this all in a really good way. I just saw this morning.
All right, he said, this is Liberty Lockdown. He said, there hasn't been an election in Palestine in 17 years. That's true. Half of the people living in Gaza today weren't even alive during that election. The voting age in 2006 was 18, so you'd have to be 35 years old today to have ever voted even once in your entire life. 70% of them are under 35 years old, so 70% plus of them have never voted. Hamas won the election with under 50% of the popular vote, so approximately 85% of Palestinians alive today didn't vote for Hamas. So to the people who keep saying they voted for Hamas, they get what they deserve, stop saying it. It's dumb.
85%, and of course these are rough numbers, could be 80 or whatever, but 85% of Palestinians alive today did not vote for Hamas. Now, that is not the same thing as saying that they don't support Hamas. That number could be very different. Now, what people will respond with is that there have been polls conducted, Charlie.
Well, this is he's saying to the people who keep saying they voted for Hamas.
True.
They get what they deserve. So he's responding specifically to that.
So some of the responses on his were that polls show that 90% of them support Hamas. Listen, when we do polls in America, we call them BS. Yeah.
Do you support me, Nate?
If you can't see right now because you're listening, Charlie's pointing a gun directly at my head. A finger gun.
Yeah.
Directly, which if we were in grade school, that'd get us expelled right now.
I know, but we're not.
We're not.
This is freedom of America speech.
Like, you look at polls in America and you're like, oh, yeah, that's BS. Who answers their phone, and does a poll or whatever? You actually going to answer, or someone's going to come up to you and ask you to fill out a form? How do you think they conduct the poll?
Yeah.
Who puts out the poll? Hamas? Like, seriously, don't have such a double standard for things. Just say that you are trying to rationalize in your brain that it's okay for civilians who potentially are just hostages to die in an airstrike for revenge.
That way, when you look at the little kid who didn't deserve to die, you can sleep at night.
And I'm not saying that means everything that Israel is doing is wrong and they shouldn't defend themselves or whatever, our typical disclaimer that we have to do here. I'm just saying, don't rationalize, accept the truth. Like, say, yeah, there are innocent people who do not support Hamas, who wish that they could leave and wish that they could stand up without getting killed, that are just getting mowed down right now by shrapnel or whatever.
Caught in the crossfire.
And accept that fact. Don't try to rationalize it. Okay, that's dumb bleep number 1. Dumb bleep number 2 comes from Jimmy Wales. Jimmy Wales, by the way, is he the founder of Wikipedia, or is he the guy who runs it right now? I should have looked that up. Someone give me a fact check in the group. I think he might be the founder. Let me see.
I can look it up while you're going for it.
Jimmy Wales said, fast-moving claims and counterclaims, and Elon Musk has removed all the core features that made it even remotely possible to tell real journalists from fakes. And Elon Musk responds with real journalist, LMAO. Right now, what did we find?
He's a co-founder of Wikipedia.
Co-founder of Wikipedia. So Jimmy Wales' complaint here has to do with the checkmark system. And what he's complaining about, ironically, without a check mark, although I know that this is actually Jimmy Wales because I know that this is his account, he's complaining that since you removed the legacy checkmark system, that there's no way of being able to tell what's real or fake news. Because remember, Charlie, back in the old days, when the people running Twitter would get to decide who got a blue check mark, at that point in time, all the news you saw from blue check marks was real news.
Was legit.
It was the truth.
Except for like the New York Post and Hunter Biden's laptop.
True.
That had to be. Even though they had a blue check mark, that one had to be taken down.
Yeah, so in the old days, actually what it was that check marks meant fake news back in the old days. Now, I don't really care about anyone's check mark anymore. Like I said, ironically, this is Jimmy Wales saying this, and it's got a bunch of views, and Elon Musk responded to it. And like, I know that this is him that said it because it's from his account. I know it's his account because you can go to it. It's got millions of follows, and it's the one that he uses for tweeting all the time. You could take 2 seconds and see. Here's a funny response to this. Now, he said real journalist, LMAO. A new development since this happened. It actually happened on the same day where he made fun of real journalists. Elon Musk has removed the New York Times verification badge. So there are these kind of legacy verification badges or journalist verification badges for these big outlets out there. And the funny part now is that he actually went out there and took away the verification mark for the New York Times, which has got 55 million followers. So it's gone. They're no longer verified on Twitter. On the same day that Jimmy Wales was complaining about people not having blue check marks and not being able to tell who the real news was coming from, they took away their check mark. So,
God,
hilarious, I know, and it could have something to do with this whole thing that happened after the hospital strike. Because this, Israel strike kills hundreds in hospital, 500 dead in strike on Gaza, 500 dead in blast at Gaza hospital, all coming from the New York Times. But it's coming from the New York Times, so it has to be real because you don't get fake news from verified people. It's just not a thing. Okay, so number 2 goes to, and by the way, Wikipedia. So to be complaining to Elon Musk, because now you have something called community notes. And community notes is where people get to come together and they rate things as true or not true, and they can be added to the end of claims that people are making.
Kind of like Wikipedia.
The person complaining about this is the co-founder of Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Can someone explain that? The site where anyone can edit. Yes, Costco. Yes. That one. Okay, and by the way, like half the crap you see on there is fake. On Wikipedia.
Yeah. Even if you provide sources.
All right. Number 3, let's go to video for this. This is someone interviewing the head of Hamas in Gaza and wants to get the right people on his side. And so he is likening what's happening in Gaza to the murder of George Floyd in America. So BLM people, make sure you're on the right side here. Oh, it says, I want to take this opportunity to remember the racist murder of George Floyd. George Floyd.
جورج فلويد قتل في مثل هذه الأيام
was killed as a result of racist ideology held by some people. The same type of racism that killed George Floyd is being used by Israel against the Palestinians. And I want to take this. Oh, that was the end. That was a loop. I was about to read the whole thing again. Okay.
So, Israel.
Georgie Floyd.
Georgie. So basically, Israel killed George Floyd. That's what I got from that.
It's the same ideology. It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. we got a guy running a group of people who went out there and murdered innocent women and children and men. By the way, don't forget about the men. Okay, I'm sick of this sexist way that we talk about innocent people getting murdered. The men's lives matter. Okay,
not as much.
They go out there and they do these terrible things. They take hostages, and that he is now complaining that what Israel is doing to them is like what people did to George Floyd. Now, if you connect all those two together, that's not great for the BLM cause. Like if you actually want to make BLM and Hamas close to the same thing, that's not good. Now, last Dumbleep, we talked about how BLM Chicago was posting out. Remember the picture of the guy on the parachute out there, going out there to kill innocent civilians? I guess BLM was totally fine with that. So have we officially reached the point where BLM is Hamas? I mean, I say that they're terrorists sometimes. They go out there and they terrorize, and I don't want the terrorists to win. But are we going to make that comparison?
I don't think, no. Reminds me of Dumbleep number 1. No.
Hamas. I'm not talking about.
Hamas does not equal BLM.
Okay. Some people in BLM?
Some people, maybe. Yeah.
Well, if you joined it, you're fine with everything they do.
I think, I mean, this is kind of ridiculous, obviously. Now, that's not to say that the Israeli government has not hurt some Palestinian people, obviously.
Yeah, but did they do it because they're racist? Because they hate Arabs?
No, I don't think that's the reason.
Yeah. And also, was George Floyd killed because he was black? Was it a racist killing?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Yeah.
But I don't know.
I guess we don't know for sure.
The motivations of,
We don't know what Chauvin would have done had it been a white guy that was, high as hell.
He could have kept his knee on the back of a white guy too. Who knows?
I think we should let him back out in the wild and see what happens.
He's only allowed to interact with white people.
Just as a study.
Yeah. But of course, so this is the leader, the head of Hamas
in Gaza, apparently. Okay. Allegedly, according to this post. Now, this is Vice News, so there's about a 15% chance of it being true, at least, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. But you see how this rhetoric plays out now on a global stage.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's so important to attack it like in the beginning, in the small stages, where people are like, let people think what they want to think, whatever. Well, I mean, they think what they want to think, but you got to call it out as being really dumb because this really does filter, like extrapolate itself out into the entire world. And when you allow those lies, because what you're doing is you're allowing lies
to fester.
And when you allow that lie, it grows and it grows, and other people decide that they're going to
like Pinocchio's nose.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. BLM's nose is now reaching all the way over to Gaza right now and touching this guy.
Yeah.
So this is the tip of BLM's nose, actually. Talking. That's what I think. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Number 4.
From Chicago.
Number 4. It needs to be mentioned. It was put in as a dumb bleep submission. We mentioned it yesterday, but we'll talk about the Janet Yellen thing real quick. She said, of course, we have plenty of money to fund both Israel and I was going to say Israel and Palestine, which we do actually. We're going to give $100 million to Palestine for aid that they're definitely going to use for aid for sure to aid their efforts in attacking Israel. I'm sure, but we can help both Ukraine and Israel and not crash our entire economy at the same time. Here is her saying that.
What this all means. Paul Tudor Jones, the famed investor, was on CNBC this week, and he said, "This is the most threatening and challenging geopolitical environment that I've ever seen. At the same time, the US is in its weakest fiscal position since World War II, with debt to GDP at 122%. Can America, can the West afford another war at this time?"
I think the answer is absolutely. America can certainly afford to stand with Israel and to support Israel's military needs. And we also can and must support Ukraine in its struggle against Russia. And look, the American economy is doing extremely well.
Literally, the journalist is like, America's economy is the weakest it's been since World War II. With debt to GDP at 123%. She's like, our economy is strong. Strong as I've ever seen.
Now, what she means by
Mr. Journalist.
Like I said yesterday, I mean, she holds the purse, and the purse is down about 33 trill right now. Okay.
It's a heavy purse.
It's a very, very heavy handbag that she's carrying around.
Gucci or?
But it doesn't matter how much debt we have, how big the deficits are. We can fund both Jews and Nazis at the same time. We can do this. Very important job.
That's a good distinction. And send 100 million to Palestinians.
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
Basically, no other countries need to exist. America can afford it all.
Yeah, we should just take over all the countries. We can fund all of it.
We just occupy. We'll send 1,000 Americans to every country.
That way we have to defend them.
And then we can
against the other ones.
Exactly.
I gotcha. And then we're defending them.
Is that the threshold, you think? 1,000?
It's probably 1,000. Yeah. I would say.
Set up a 1,000-person city in every country, and then you'd have to defend it.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's a good plan. That's a good plan for world domination.
We can afford it. Of course we can.
Okay, moving away from this war and on to another one. Queer! Professor.
That's it.
Professor.
Another war. Queer.
Professor allegedly left bloodied after on-campus altercation with right-wing group. And this is being investigated. Queer professor left bloodied after on-campus altercation with right-wing group. And this is being investigated.
They're wearing MAGA hats.
It's being investigated as a hate crime right now, by the way. That's why I decided to look at this. And when you say altercation with right-wing group, well, I don't know. I guess they came up and attacked this person. I'm not really sure what happened. I decided it was worth actually reading the article and digging into it. Now, they're in an altercation with someone from TP USA. A queer professor at Arizona State University was allegedly left bloodied after an altercation broke out last week between him and two members of a conservative group, and what authorities are investigating as a hate crime. David Boyles, who teaches English and is a co-founder of Drag Story Hour, Arizona, was confronted on ASU's campus by two men with the right-wing group Turning Point USA on Wednesday. The next day, the group posted online a 96-second video showing Boyles being followed by a cameraman and a personality named Callan D'Almeida, who was firing contentious questions about his work with Drag Story Hour. Drag Story Hour is a national group of local chapters across the country that organizes events where drag performers read children's books to kids while half naked, flopping their penises in front of little children. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not what that said at all. Yeah,
you added that part.
For context. It was missing context. Was the problem. You can't run, D'Almeida said. It's best if you just talk to me on why you want to push sodomy to young people. And so anyway, they were following this guy who's walking down the campus. There's a cameraman and an interviewer, and they're walking next to the guy, trying to ask him questions. Now, at a point, I would say Do you think that ever becomes a violation of your liberty, Charlie? Like if someone is walking next to you, they're not preventing you from going anywhere, but they're walking next to you for however long it is that you're walking somewhere, and they're filming you. I guess you're on public property, and they're asking you questions. I don't know if it matters. The questions are, why do you like to get naked in front of kids? Mm-hmm. But we could just leave that out. Is that a violation of your liberty, you think?
No, you don't. Let's go into a building.
Okay.
Go into a private building where people can't follow you.
All right, so we'll talk about why that is important coming right up on Liberty at Night on the Free Talk Live network.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Israel's ambassador to the United Nations has called on the UN Secretary-General to resign following Antonio Guterres' comments on the Israel-Hamas conflict. Taking to the social media platform X, Gilad Erdan said Guterres is completely disconnected from the reality of the region. FSN's Jody Jacobs reports from UNHQ in New York.
In his address to the Council on Tuesday, Antonio Guterres says that it was important to recognize that the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. The Palestinian people, he said, have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation. This statement drew the ire of the Israeli delegation also attending the meeting. Taking to social media, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, called the Secretary-General's speech shocking. I call on him to resign immediately, he said. Erdan says there's no justification in talking to those who show compassion for the most terrible atrocities against the citizens of Israel.
Tom Emmer is the new Speaker-designate for the U.S. House of Representatives after Republican Party lawmakers in Congress voted behind closed doors to select him as the new nominee. FSN's Benji Hire reports.
The Republican whip, Tom Emmer, defeated a panel of 7 of his colleagues to earn the nomination, but it remains to be seen if he'll have the necessary numbers to actually get his hands on the gavel. For weeks now, the lower chamber has been in limbo, rudderless, frozen without a speaker at the helm. The timing of all this is dire. Congress faces a government funding deadline in November. Meanwhile, crises unfold abroad, Ukraine and Israel fighting wars and asking for US aid. Emmer, a Minnesota congressman, needs 217 of his colleagues to back him when he decides to take the vote to the House floor.
Donald Trump's former fixer and lawyer, Michael Cohen, has told a New York court that the former president arbitrarily set his net worth. Cohen is testifying at Trump's civil fraud case, where the former president is accused of inflating the value of his real estate assets. 33 US states have filed a lawsuit accusing Meta of causing harm to children who use the company's online platforms, which include Facebook and Instagram. The lawsuit cites research showing that social media use is associated with issues such as depression. FSN's Ira Spitzer has more from San Francisco.
The complaint filed in a Northern California court alleges that Meta violated consumer protection laws by misleading the public over the dangers of its platforms. The states say that algorithms used by Facebook and Instagram are designed to push children into addictive and compulsive social media use in order to boost Meta's profits. They are seeking financial penalties and an injunction to stop the company from using certain features.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
We're back on Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie going through Dumb Bleep of the Week, and we're right in the middle of a controversy. This is the video. The important point here is that
usually, I just want people to know, usually when people get real defensive, when you're asking them questions, they're usually guilty. I want you to know that.
So he was left bloodied.
Usually, not always.
He was left bloodied after an altercation with a right-wing group, and this is being investigated as a hate crime. One important point that we might want to point out is that he is the one who attacked the cameraman first, and then the other guy pushed him as he was attacking the cameraman, and the queer fell down and hit his face on the sidewalk.
Identified by journalists as queer.
Literally, the article starts with queer. Mm-hmm. The headline starts with queer. The article starts with queer. So I'm just saying what they're saying. Here's them walking down the sidewalk right here. And you can see the guy get pushed. And the other guy comes up behind him and pushes him. And that was the altercation. Like, that was the whole altercation right there. He pushes the cameraman. The other guy pushes him off the cameraman, and he falls and hits his face on the pavement. Maybe people probably can't see it because there's him pushing that guy. This guy pushes him.
Also, I was taking a look at your Substack, and it seems like you really, really hate Americans. Like, you just are disgusted with Americans in this country. And it's funny because you would like to see a different America exist where little boys are sodomized by people like you, right? Hey.
All right. So there's your altercation. There's your hate crime investigation right there.
And it looks like the cameraman's backing up and trying to block. Mm-hmm. That's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I asked you beforehand because I think
it's written in the law you can't push queers in the back. And maybe that's,
unless they should ask for it. No, I just wanted to finish the law. Anyhow.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. This is the annoying part about hate crimes.
I can't.
You know? Because first off, this could just be called an altercation. And if it wasn't a queer that was pushed down to the pavement in this scenario, I think you would just look at the video and you would see that he attacked the cameraman first and that the other guy came up to defend the cameraman and push him away from the cameraman. The guy falls down, hits his face on the pavement. And if the word queer wasn't involved here, I feel like that's kind of the end of the story right there. Maybe the cameraman presses charges against the dude for pushing him. But I don't think we get this whole hate crime investigation going on right now, which could end up being really serious. I think you get the death penalty for that. Not for pushing one. We'll see. We'll see what happens. They're moving forward, I believe, with the charges on this.
Ridiculous.
So hate crimes are dumb. Okay, just on their own. What's number 6? Let's move on to, there we go. Charlie, go ahead.
All right, this is from Sarah Spector. She said, I don't understand why it's okay to regulate a woman's body to save the life of a fetus, but it's not okay to regulate the price of insulin to save the life of a diabetic. Same.
Why do you think it's not?
Well, abortion.
I mean, come on, this is a perfect analogy.
This whole show is about things equaling each other.
Yeah.
Abortion is the same as insulin.
Analogies are very important. You know, one thing I've always had a little pet peeve about it, people that make terrible analogies. Mm-hmm. You know, people who can't make analogies are like freaking Nazis. Did you get my analogy?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Okay. Exactly. You made a terrible analogy.
Okay.
To explain that you don't like terrible analogies.
Good.
These things aren't the same. They're not the same thing.
So to compare one to the other, you're going to save the life of a fetus. You got to say fetus, not baby. Okay. So you got to use that word. All that requires is you preventing someone from taking an action. Like you tell a doctor that they can't kill the baby. Okay. Which is how like we as libertarians would say like, okay, the doctor can't take the action of killing the baby. All right. So on the other one, when you say regulate the price of insulin,
say in the growth of the fetus, if you want to, you know, you can't take an action that would end the growth of the fetus.
Well, that one gets complicated for me because what if the mom takes an action that would end the growth of the fetus? You know, like she goes on a hunger strike. You know, what are you going to do?
There's nothing you can do about that.
So regulate the price of insulin, you're actually forcing other people to take actions. One of the actions you're taking is you're going to take all the insulin away from everyone else because there's not going to be any left because you're going to kill the market. So that's one of the things. And when you regulate the price of insulin, what do you mean by that? You're probably actually going to subsidize the price of insulin is what you're going to do. So which means you're going to take money from other people and give it to other people who need insulin, which means you're actually forcing other people to take actions on behalf of someone else so they can provide something to someone else. You see, you're flipping the whole, you're either going to force someone to take an action to create an outcome, or you're going to say that someone can't take an action to create an outcome that you want. So it's a bad analogy is what I'm saying.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't like bad analogies. I just don't. Number 7. This guy's holding up a 3 right now. The Washington Post, they post out that the Marine Corps made a concern. I actually read it that fat in my head. I'll read it and then I realize that I have to change it afterwards. Like I'll say corpse. And I'm like, that's not corpse.
It's core.
It's core. Clearly.
Why would they put a P on it?
Look at the letters. Come on. Take the P out.
Yeah.
Marines. The Marine Corps has made a concerted push to become more reflective of the diverse nation it defends. The number of black Marines who fly fighter jets has fallen. Critics say the service appears unwilling to take aggressive steps to level the playing field. This is a problem.
God.
This is a problem.
Maybe they don't want to fly.
Marines struggle with a glaring diversity problem. This is the story. So
God, do you realize? So American military service is volunteer. And then wait, they're not holding anybody back because of their color?
No. Well,
they'll let anybody sign up to die.
No, they mentioned that in the article that they have removed any barrier to entry for anyone that maybe was there in the past, but that's not enough for them. They've got to be actively promoting black Marines up to flying these jets to fix their diversity problem, So they spent decades making a concerted push to become more reflective. Officials point to sustained gains in recruiting women to join the force and the growing overall diversity among services officer ranks.
They want women to die.
But within its community fighter pilots, these efforts have failed to keep pace. And while leaders acknowledge they have work to do, observers say the institution appears unwilling to take the aggressive and resource-intensive steps that experts deem necessary to put black candidates for those jobs on more equal footing with their white peers. What are they talking about?
What do you have to do?
Well, I mean,
it's not easy to become a fighter pilot. And by the way,
I think that's
haven't
what
you
they're
seen
saying.
Top Gun?
It didn't look tough for him. I mean, he was fine.
Yeah, and he's white. That's right.
True. To become a pilot of one of these areas, you basically have to have a doctorate in killing innocent civilians. And that's tough to get. It's expensive, and there's a lot of training for that. No offense to all the fighter pilots out there. I'm sure you dream about it every night. Gary
I don't
Graham
even
Jr.
think I can be a fighter pilot because I think I'm too tall, right? Isn't there a height limit?
There is a height limit. I don't know if you're over it, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the limit is. You're probably close, I would say. You probably are. Let's see. A film producer whose father flew fighter jets in the Marine Corps has researched the imbalance and concluded that the service leaders underestimate what's required for African Americans to overcome certain obstacles that can stymie the prospects of otherwise qualified individuals. He points to previous flying experience, which is expensive. Graham also faults a recruiting system that he said has done a lackluster job engaging the black community specifically. And here's the deal. But before we even decide that we're going to go through all of this article and talk about how they have failed at this quest and how there aren't enough black fighter pilots or whatever, my main question is, for Dumb Bleep number 7, why is this a goal whatsoever? The main question is, who cares?
Yeah,
I don't care.
I don't fit.
You don't fit? What's the height requirement?
So you have to be no less than 64 inches short and 77 inches tall when standing.
No less than 64
inches
There's a 64
short.
minimum?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have to be 5'4" or 6'5". 77 inches, 6'5".
77 is, yes, 6'5". So
Yeah.
5'4"
to
6'5"
6'5"
is the
and you have
range.
to be 34 to 40 inches tall when sitting. So you only have a 6-inch. When you're sitting, you've only got 6 inches.
All right.
And you have to weigh no less than 160 pounds. So if you're under 160, you don't qualify, and no more than 231 pounds. So if you're over 231, you don't qualify.
So what you're telling me is
if
that
you fall outside these ranges, it's still possible to pursue a career in aviation. But an additional screening will be required to make sure you can safely perform operational duties. And there are also specific height and weight requirements for specific airframes, which will be discussed during your pilot training. So you can't have a history of hay fever, allergies, or asthma. Normal color vision with near visual acuity of 20/30 without correction. Distance visual acuity of no worse than 20/70 in each eye. And you have to meet refraction, accommodation, and astigmatism requirements.
Okay. So
nothing about being white or black. But
nothing about, okay, so yeah, you're right. It didn't mention skin color in there.
No, nothing about skin pigmentation.
All right, just making sure.
But there's a lot of height and weight requirements.
So before we went through those specifications, the point I was making is this shouldn't matter. What should matter is that the absolute best person for the job is the one who's flying the airplane.
Exactly.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
This idea that we have to have diversity requirements in the people that are, let's give all the benefit of the doubt here, the people that are defending our country and keeping us safe. All right. If we were to be invaded, who do you want flying? The DEI candidate who got put there because of the color of his skin or what was in her pants, or the person who was best for the job, who did the best job out of everyone. That's all I care about. I want them to be the best people for the job. Okay. That's it. That's all that should matter. Are they the best people? So we don't even have to go through the rest of it.
Yep. Agreed.
Number 8, this girl. Been seeing this girl all over Twitter.
I like in the note you put girl.
Girl. I didn't know what to call her.
This girl.
Definitely girl. All right. So she is complaining. A lot of people have probably seen this. She is.
Imagine that.
Yeah. I didn't have to. Sorry, that part was redundant. And so she is upset.
We already knew that.
She has a business marketing degree and she can't get hired at one of these $150,000 to $200,000 a year jobs fresh out of college. They want her to work for less money than that. And she's making more money waiting tables. And so it's impossible for people like her and her nice car sipping her Starbucks to get ahead in life because she can't just get automatically picked up at one of these jobs.
I have a bone to pick with America! So I'm headed to my serving job. I fucking hate it.
Earmuffs.
I fucking hate it.
Earmuffs.
I want to make more money serving. I have my literal business marketing degree.
Now, is that better than the figurative business marketing degree?
A literal one?
Yeah, but not quite as good as a metaphorical.
I mean, as long as it's
marketing
hanging on her wall, does she have it framed?
I don't know. She probably does. Okay, sorry. We'll back it up a little bit.
Business marketing degree that put me in a cute $80,000 in debt.
That was smart.
And I make more serving sushi rolls because I've been applying to marketing jobs fucking for weeks now, and the pay cut is insane. But the jobs that are like a cute $150,000 to $200,000 a year, I'm not getting those. I'm a almost 25-year-old, my birthday soon, almost 25-year-old chick going against, corporate ass America, people with so much experience. All I got is my degree. People say, get your degree, but then they don't talk about how you need experience. The degree was the experience! I need to relax.
Yeah. The degree was the experience.
Yeah.
So
just put on there that you did keg stands in college. And so you can face adversity. Yeah. And we should hire you at $150,000 to $200,000 a year because right out of school, you're going to provide that much value.
And she was probably the only person that graduated with that degree.
With your literal business marketing degree.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're worth that much to someone. Jesus.
So a couple things, $80K for this business marketing degree. Do you even, I guess you do, but I feel like technology has advanced so much now, and with social media and AI and all this other stuff, that you need a business marketing degree from college to work in business marketing. Is that it? I mean, I'm asking a question now. I'm not saying that you have to, but is that what they're looking for?
I don't think so.
You're a tough person to ask because you have no degree. And you're like,
experience will trump education every time.
Yeah.
Every single time.
But she doesn't want to get experience. You see, the problem with everyone going to college and getting this, like I said earlier,
everyone went to college.
She's not the only person that graduated with that degree.
Yeah.
So
she doesn't understand that labor is a commodity. That she's in competition with other people who are willing to take a lower salary to get on the job experience coupled with their degree, so that maybe in 5, 6, 7 years they can make that $150,000 to $200,000 a year.
Yeah,
you know, they can be at that. That's really a vice. But she wants to be a vice president straight out of school. Pay me 200 G's, and then give me a car allowance and a corner office. But Allison
is that her name? Oh yeah, it looks like
Fitness with Allison.
Fitness with Allison.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about you just grow your fitness channel?
So the thing is, you're going to have to take a job making less money and get experience. So people can then, like you just said, that's like extra plus college. Like that's like getting your business doctorate. You know, now they have plenty of other people who did take the lower paid job who have experience, or they can take someone fresh out of college who has no actual experience doing the job. Which one are you going to pick? You're going to pick the one that has actual experience in the field. You're not just going to hire someone at 150 or 200. It's ridiculous. Number 9, this is funny. The UN Human Rights Council just held their elections, and here's their 2024 to 2026 class of members for the UN Human Rights Council.
Cuba.
I actually had to check this a couple times because I thought that maybe it was fake.
Members include, this is for human rights, by the way, Cuba, Qatar, China, Sudan. I don't even know that's a country. Eritrea?
Yeah, I think that was right.
Eritrea? Kuwait. They're most known.
Yeah.
For their human rights. Algeria, Burundi, Somalia. Vietnam, Malaysia, still looking for that airplane though. Kazakhstan, and Bangladesh.
In reading through the list, you would assume that this has to be parody, right? Like it would have to be. There's no way that it would actually be real. But as you research it, especially on Twitter.
This is from news.un.org. So Albania, Brazil, Bulgaria, Burundi, China, Cuba, Dominican Republic, France, Ghana, Indonesia.
For this year or for
beginning? They serve for 3 years beginning January 1, 2024. Hang on. These are just the new members. So the new members will join Algeria, Argentina, Bangladesh, Belgium, Benin, Cameroon, Chile, Costa Rica, Eritrea, Finland, Gambia, Georgia, Germany, Honduras, India, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malaysia, Maldives, Montenegro, Morocco, Paraguay, Qatar, Romania, Somalia,
okay,
South Africa, Sudan, UAE, United States of America, and Vietnam on the 1st of January 2024. So those countries are now added to all those other countries.
Okay. So the list of countries we have are on the UN Human Rights Council.
Yes.
Okay. Great. That's good. When can we get rid of the UN then? Can I make a motion to get rid of the... What do they do?
These people were elected, Nate. Free and fair elections.
So we support them. It's the United Nations and we're a member. So that's great. I'm just still wondering why we have the UN. When they said council, I thought they meant human rights counseling, like to help the people, because they don't know what they're doing. They need help with it. The Human Rights Council is an intergovernmental body with the United Nations system responsible for strengthening the promotion and protection of human rights around the globe. So these are the people.
Maybe these people do care about human rights in their country, and they are now elected on the council, so they can get pamphlets to bring back to their government.
I got you.
To say, hey, here's what we're doing wrong.
You know who got the snub this year, though, was North Korea. Look at Eritrea, the one that we were talking about. That's the one I picked. Their government remains one of the world's most repressive, subjecting its population to widespread forced labor and conscription, imposing restrictions on freedom of expression, opinion, and faith, and restricting independent scrutiny by international monitors. It's got a one-man dictatorship with no legislature, no independent civil society organizations or media outlets, and no independent judiciary. Elections have never been held in the country since it gained independence in 1993, and the government has never implemented the 1997 Constitution guaranteeing civil rights and limiting executive power. That's good stuff from the UN. And then we'll look at one last dumb bleep here. Carolina Care, this is an email that someone got, and I saw this posted out by that Felix Ammunition page that's always trolling pretty good. So I did have to go in and make sure this is real, but Carolina Care access for young adult dependents aged 12 to 17. So here's the subject of the email. Access to your child's Carolina Care account will change November 1st. Dear parent or legal guardian, we wanted to let you know about an upcoming change to your Carolina Care account that will take effect on November 1st, 2023. Starting November 1st, 2023, you will no longer be able to have access to prescription information for your children between the ages of 12 and 17. If your child has not yet turned 12, this change will take effect on their 12th birthday. This change is to protect the privacy of your child's prescription records. It allows minors to receive prescription medication for sensitive issues as permitted by law without worrying about how their parents may react.
So now the new age of adulthood is 12.
I guess that's the age that the government takes ownership of you, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that 12?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I went in to make sure this was real because it seemed very highly ridiculous. And
they can get Xanny bars. They can get Adderall.
No,
they can get birth control.
Anything. It's fine.
Whatever you want.
You just don't want the parents to get mad about it. It's crazy parents.
Hormone blockers.
It's a real thing. By the way, beginning November 1st, children.
Gender fluids. IV.
Gender fluids straight up the arm. Children aged 12 to 17 will need to create a new account on the Carolina Care website. So
now, Carolina Care, is that just the Medicaid for the Carolina, like North Carolina?
It's not just Carolina, because the reason they say they did this is because they serve in multiple states. And since different states have made this law, my guess is California. I don't think that we have to go into why this is so ridiculous. I think every competent person who's listening right now knows how.
Atrium Health. So Atrium. So this basically is then the prescription program that Atrium Healthcare provides to their employees.
Okay.
I would assume. And it says here that Atrium Health provides healthcare, hope, and healing.
Regardless, I think we all agree that this is really dumb. It is the parents' children, just to be clear with everyone. That's how we come down on the issue. This is your child, not the government's child. So whatever law it is that they are complying with, and whatever state it is that they're complying with, and that law needs to go immediately, because it's a freaking 12-year-old. All right, let's get the votes in.
If you're part of the live group, get your vote in. Boom.
Okay, Carolina Care is the one who wins. Listen to us every Tuesday night on Liberty at Night on the Free Talk Live network. We'll see you next time.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Forkfest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Forkfest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Forkfest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground.